Hello and welcome back to Straight Facts. It's Tuesday afternoon. I'm joined by Lee Gunner. How are you doing, mate?
Got a bit of a cold. Got a bit of a cold, man. A little bit of a head cold I've had for about a week.
I know.
So,
2 weeks running in a dressing gown. It's
I know, mate. It's hammering down with rain here today as well. Literally thunder and lightning a lot. So, yeah, it's not great.
I hear you, mate. And viewers, I hope you're all doing good. Please smash the like button to begin with. Lots to talk about today. Of course, Man City still dominating the headlines. Massive leaked emails about tens of millions of pounds of alleged fraudulent money via the FFP rules being placed into the club's accounts. We're going to be delving into that. We're also going to be looking at Pep. Is he melting down? Is he falling under the pressure of not just these allegations, but the title race with Arsenal as well? We will be talking about Arsenal's defeat with, of course, Lee Gunner later in the show as well. And news today that Harry Kane will reject Manchester United in the summer. We're going to look at that and much, much more. Any questions you've got, of course, get your super chats in. Get your member chats in as well. See our members here. Mama Flossie says hello to myself and Lee. Hope you're doing well. City for the free piece. Bro, free piece. Listen, if you get sanctioned big enough by the Premier League, you might not even be able to afford a free piece suite, let alone another Premier League, my friend. So let's see what happens, Blue Viper, as things move on. But I wanted to get Lee, like you kind of, I know you've got a different thought around should FFP exist or not, and we'll come to that a bit later. In terms of Man City, these revelations are huge. We're talking over 100 breaches, breaking of over 5 different laws that the Premier League has, spanning 14 seasons. This does feel pretty unprecedented.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think it's as big as it's being made out to be. Like 100 breaches. Terry, one of them was the dimensions of the medical room were too small. Like the grass was too long. Yeah. Like they're just throwing anything in there to make it sound more dramatic than it actually is. Because for me personally, I don't think that these owners of City are that stupid that they thought that they could do all of this and get away with it. So they must have look. The easiest way to explain it: Todd Bowley at Chelsea has found loopholes around FFP with 8-year contracts and stuff like that, to the point where they're now going to change the rules. I'm not suggesting that Man City have done that or have broken them. I don't know. I weren't in the room when all this was happening, but from what I've seen, and what I've read about it, and I've seen other content creators do stuff on it as well. So this has been going on for 4 or 5 years. If it was that serious, they would have been charged already, right? Like years ago. Well, and the reason then, and from what I've seen, is Manchester City have just gone, well, we ain't giving you any information until we legally have to. And that's all I've seen. Like all I've seen is a whole list of things that they could or could not have done wrong. Yeah, and that are being alleged that they've done wrong. And some of them are just laughable. Yeah, and it's like...
Yeah, so I understand that. I think what really needs to be put into perspective here is lots of teams receive sanctions and charges from the Premier League every year for different things. Sometimes the charge is failing to control your team. I think maybe this is something we need from the professional journalists is to start reaching out to clubs. How many teams have had a charge come through about grass not being long enough, grass not being watered, maybe? Like, you probably find these things are quite common practice, but you don't hear about it because nobody cares. What we've seen here is the complete rap sheet come through. And like sometimes we've all watched the films where there's big RICO cases against mafioso or, against crime family. And a lot of them are like big cases, but you'll always get things thrown in there as well, like tail light broken, or one of the tires on the car was flat. They add everything they can in to ensure that they create as bad a picture as possible about a club. So I totally understand that. What I would say about one thing you said around why is it taken so long? Well, this is the thing. City are very adamant they've done nothing wrong. The Premier League believe that they have. The leaked emails today, though, are the things to me which I find most staggering. And there's many of them. They're from a 67-page dossier that is being released. Some journalists have been sitting on this for a while, and the people that have broke the links, the reason they've been sitting on them is because the governing bodies have said, can you not release until we're ready to? But when you go through these emails, and this is one of them that's up on the screen, and you break these down, it's damning to read. And of course, these are going to be forensically examined. But the one here that we've got on the screen states this. It's asking for £15 million to be funded to Man United via their telecommunications sponsor, and it's asking for 42 million in total. And it says here, can I ask that the relevant amounts be routed through the partners, and they are then forwarded onto us as part of the overall fees owing, 35 million from Etihad, 3.5 million from the I can't pronounce the name, but their telecommunications company, being placed through. And there's a series of emails that continue that essentially are saying the shareholders need to give us money so that we can balance the books and we can buy players, but can we pay them via the sponsors? And the reason I bring that up is there was a super chat that came in very early from Chike. And Chike said, Terry, why is it illegal to spend your own money to be successful in any sport? The Bronco owners are Walmart owners, and they just spent almost 500 million on 2 people. Is that illegal? So again, people have got to understand here, there's laws within the game, but they're not criminal laws. So it's not illegal for an owner to pump money into his football club criminally. But FFP came in, and it's coming for 2 reasons. One, people think it's unfair that it stops a billionaire state-owned club from being able to spend what they want, when they want, on whom they want. Now, for people that have those types of owners, they'll say it's unfair. For clubs that don't have owners willing to do that, or that support clubs that don't have owners that have the ability to do that, they'll say it's unfair, and it creates a monopoly that hasn't been born out of decades of success. So Man United and Liverpool have huge fan bases, but they didn't wake up this morning with them. They've built them over 130 years. So there is an argument, and I know me and Lee are getting into that later, where the FFP is fair in itself. The other side of FFP, though, has been bought in to protect football clubs. Speak to Leyton Orient fans. Leyton Orient had a multi-billionaire buy their club from Barry Earn, from Matchroom. He spent money for about a year. He actually bought championship players in and was paying players in League One 20, 25, 30 grand a week. Jay Simpson was there, ex-Arsenal player. And after about a year, got bored, stopped investing money, and they fell out of league football. They got relegated 2 years running. They almost went out of business. So there's an element of FFP that states, because if Man City's owners and sponsors all walked away tomorrow, because if Sheikh Mansour goes, so do the sponsors, City's current wage bill would bankrupt them. They would go out of business inside a couple of years unless another owner was willing to come in and back that up. So there's elements of FFP that are there to protect teams, and there's elements there that are to stop what Chelsea and City were doing and essentially running away with things for a longer period of time. So it's not illegal for that to be done. It was a rule that was put in place. Whether that rule's right or wrong is another conversation. But when you see these emails, now they have to be looked at. How, if they're found guilty of this, just in one email alone, we're talking £42 million. So yesterday, a lot of people were saying, but maybe this behavior, if proven, hasn't really been the reason that they've still won these Premier League titles. You know, the players on the pitch still won them. They deserve to keep them. If they're found guilty of this, what do you think the punishment should be, Lee?
Well, based on the rules, which we'll come to in a bit, but based on the rules, then they should be relegated. Because that is what's in place. That if you've breached certain laws, rules of the financial side of it, you should be deducted points or relegated. So if we strip back these 100 alleged offences, and let's say they get done for 25 of them, well, there's probably still enough for them to get relegated. And not just relegated one division, all the way down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just find it all laughable. Like, all of this has come out and people are saying they're cooking the books. What was it? They're doping, financial doping, and all the welcome to the world of manipulating figures. Yeah, when you're an elite person with an elite level of wealth, because all this people crying about, oh, it was a PO box in London. Just Google Cayman Islands. Yeah, go and have a look at some of the companies there.
No,
There's
I
hundreds of them.
do get that, Lee. I think the difference is this, and maybe it'll come out in the wash. And if it comes out in the wash and it turns out, so I understand that Nike, for instance, don't pay a lot of tax in any country because Nike, as the business we see in London, the businesses we see in America, they don't make any profit. The company
They
that
pay
makes
1%. Their tax is in Belize.
yeah, but essentially what they do is they bring in all the money, but the Nike companies in the USA and in the UK, they have to send all their money to the parent company, which is based in a company offshore. However, there's a way of tracing back to a company that is making money and making profit, right? That you can trace the money back to that company in Belize, and that company in Belize makes money, right? That has a turnover, as an income. There is a service there behind Nike. The problem with some of these sponsors with Man City is nobody can find what they do, the services they provide, the business they offer, anyone who works there. The point is, if I had a company that could afford to sponsor a football club £10 million a year, I'd have at least one employee on LinkedIn, wouldn't I? I would have an office somewhere. They haven't. There's even behind the PO box, there's an investment company that sponsors them. And when you research them, there's very little information, but then you can find a link to sort of a parent company that is 60% owned by one of their main board members. So it's almost, again, there's a lot of these kind of, when you do your
this goes on in every top elite business. All the richest companies on the planet are doing this. It's not just Manchester City, and there's other Premier League teams that will be doing this. There'll be other league teams lower down the spectrum that will be doing this. They'll all be doing it to.
So you think there's other Premier? I mean, the question I would ask you is this: if you look at all of Arsenal sponsors, are there any of those companies that are owned 60% by Stan Kroenke? Is Stan Kroenke pumping money?
I don't know, to be honest. I genuinely don't know. One thing I do know is that our CEO did a deal with a woman posing as the CEO of a Chinese car company. And our CEO done the deal with that woman, and she weren't. She was a fraud.
No,
these things happen, Terry.
But the point I'm asking you is, like, when you look at Man United as an example, you look at Tottenham as an example, Arsenal to a degree. How much money have you seen your owners pump in? And the sponsor, like Stan Kroenke, is not pumping money in through the back door at Etihad. Emirates Airlines, and then having that, and then Emirates Airlines are pumping it into Arsenal as a way.
And that should be a bigger issue than what Man City are doing.
No, but this is what Man City are doing. So this is what
but that's what I'm saying. Stan Kroenke not doing that, and the Glazers not doing that. That should be deemed as anti everything, and what they're doing to actively try and win should be seen as commendable. And actually,
hang on. So I need to stop you for a second. So what you're saying is Man City cheating the rules but trying to win on the pitch is more admirable than Arsenal and Man United not breaking the rules.
Terry, are you telling me that Arsenal and Man United have never broken a single rule ever? Come on.
That isn't the point here. And I've seen
the question you asked me relates back to the rules.
Answer my question. So
the rules shouldn't exist in the first place.
Hang on. Let me just, but it does exist. Let's not go off topic and let's keep it on point. Have Man United and Arsenal ever cheated? Potentially. Show me the charge sheet. Show me the allegation. And you'll see me react to it in similar ways. But until we could all throw that out there. It's like you've been arrested on suspicion of a massive crime, and your defense being, can you categorically tell me that no one else in this town's ever committed a crime before?
That's just a stupid comparison. A stupid comparison.
Why is it? How is it? You just done that comparison?
No, what I'm saying, you just said, Stan Kroenke and Man United and all these other clubs are going by the rules. Are they? How do you know that?
But that's exactly the comparison I just gave.
No, but how do you know that? You don't. So my argument to that is, Man City should be charged if they have done something wrong. I've already said that 10 minutes ago. Yeah, my point is that FFP rule, the whole thing about FFP should be scrapped. It should be scrapped. And it's not going off topic.
Lee.
It's not going off topic, Terry. How can somebody be vilified?
Hang on. Let's just not go. We are going off topic because you're literally taking my question onto something else. You just said, I asked you, your first point was it's more commendable to do what City have done by breaking FFP rules than by Man United's owners and Arsenal's owners not investing in their football clubs. First of all, I wanted to understand what you meant by that. We'll move on to the other subjects.
Okay, well, so you're telling me that because they've may or may not, because we still don't know yet, and this is going to take a while to find out whether they have actually done anything wrong, Terry. This is just all out there in the media at the minute, yeah? We don't know what's happened. But if they haven't done anything wrong, then everyone that's sitting there laughing and mocking and saying they're cheats and they're financial this and financial that are going to look rather stupid, number one. And number two, right? In what world, should it be put in the bin because they want to try and achieve better?
Because this is the thing. So whether or not FFP should or shouldn't exist is a different conversation, which we'll have in a moment. It does exist, though. I'll give you an example outside of football and sport. If a man touches my daughter today and I go and smash him up, morally you would agree with me, right? But legally, I'm still going to prison. I think it's a stupid law.
That depends, doesn't it?
No. I think it's a stupid law that a father can't go and give a man who's hurt his children a punch in the face. I think
so
that
you're taking this totally out of business. Let's compare a business to a business.
I'm giving you an example as to what
that has nothing to do with business.
But I'm giving you most of the time when you give an example or you give an analogy, it's not an analogy from the same scenario. It's taking it away from it to bring it to life. Then you come back to making your point. Let me finish. I think it's a bad law, but it's in place. I understand why some people don't like FFP, but it is in place. And if they've cheated FFP, their defense can't be in the arbitration. They're and in the case, their defense can't be, well, FFP is a crap law. That won't stand up in court. So from my point of view, and I know City fans are angry, and I know City fans don't want it to be true, and I'll move on to why City fans should be more angry at their club than anybody else in a moment. Defending your club's crazy. And my point to you is, you said everyone's going to look stupid if they get away with this. Well, we know that isn't true. Everybody that doesn't, I know, again, a different scenario, but being found guilty doesn't mean you didn't do it. City having a bigger commercial income when large amounts of their sponsors are businesses that don't even have a reach outside of Abu Dhabi, having a bigger commercial income than the Real Madrids, the Bayern Munichs, the Arsenals, the Man Uniteds, some of those clubs of which sell 3 times as many shirts. Their views and their followers are 2, 3 times, 4 times as big. Having a bigger commercial revenue than them, when the majority of the sponsors are brands that nobody's heard of, that only operate inside a part of the world that doesn't have the population to bring in the money and profits to push out that money, something fishy is going on.
Are they breaking any law, i.e. criminal law, on them companies in them countries where them countries are situated? Are they paying all their tax up to date? Let me finish. I'll let you finish.
Lee, what's that got to do with anything? They're not being accused of breaking the law.
No, well, so hang on a minute. Hold on. You're talking about companies that have no reach, but they have this massive income to that company that has no reach, and that's boosted Man City's income to above Real Madrid's, yeah? That's what you just said, right? So what has that company got to do with anything then? Because if that company is up to date with its tax in the country that it's registered in, and it's fine, and everything's cool, and they're not breaking any law, criminal law, then what's the issue with that? Because that company is set up as like a little satellite company, to go and feed into a main company, the umbrella company.
No, because that's against, again, there's no law against that. But there is with FFP in the Premier League.
And FFP is civil, not criminal, Terry.
But they're not being criminal.
I'll let you finish. You gave me a stupid example a minute ago. I want to give you a business example.
Stop. They're not being criminally charged. They are breaking a law. They're breaking the law of a competition. So this is a little bit like doping in athletics. Anabolic steroids are illegal in the UK, the majority, unless you get prescribed by a doctor. But there are certain pills that you can buy in Holland and Barrett's to help you burn fat that boxers get banned for taking. They won't get arrested because they're not taking a criminally illegal. They're not taking a drug that's criminally illegal. What Man City are being accused of isn't illegal in any capacity. It's not money laundering, but it breaks competition rules within the Premier League. That the Premier League, it's the equivalence of saying, well, it's like if Man City started a game with 12 players on the football pitch, they wouldn't get arrested for it, but they'd get in trouble because it's against the rules of the game. And FFP states that club owners are only allowed to pump in circular £100 million every 3 years of their own money into a football club. And what it appears that they've done is they've got these sponsors on board, and then the shareholders and the owners of Man City pump money into those companies, and that money is then injected straight into Man City. Those businesses do not exist in any real capacity. Some of the companies are accused of not even offering services. It's just a way of pretending their commercial revenue is high so they can sign and buy and pay the wages of the squad they've developed over the last 14 years. Now, if
So they're
FFP does,
actively trying to be more successful, is what you're saying.
that's what they're doing against the
And that's
rules of
wrong.
the game.
Wow.
So, you're accepting. You think it's okay to cheat the rules?
Terry, the rules shouldn't exist, right? And I
Why
want to
should
use
they
a
not
business.
exist? Why
Like, when I
shouldn't they
come to
exist then?
let me answer you. I let you speak and from like and I listen to you. I want to use a business example because you used a stupid example, yeah. A business example. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think when Jeff Bezos set up Amazon and started investing all of his profit back into Amazon to make it bigger and better, and then he decided, yo, I'm going to do next day delivery and I'm going to kill the market? Do you actually think he thought about Jim Bob down the road who has a delivery company and I'm going to squash him and put him out of business? No. Yeah. Was there any rules and regulations in Jeff Bezos' delivery company having to adhere to a certain amount of revenue he can pump back in? You know, how much money he can make back into his business to make his business more successful? Why is it only in football there are these stupid rules and laws to stop owners who actually have ambition, an owner, a company owner, because that is what Sheikh Mansour is. It's a company. Yeah, as much as we call it football, it's a business to them. So the rules and laws are put in place to stop a super ambitious owner who wants to be the most successful owner and win every single competition every single year. That's seen as bad, but the Glazers can take 2 billion quid out of your football club and the FA say, no, that's fine, mate. Make it make sense, Terry. I've seen Man United fans sit there say, oh, well, if they get done for it, yeah, then we get their titles. How about if you had gotten your owner's case, Man City wouldn't have dominated anyway if they'd invested that 2 billion that they stole. Like, come on.
So in response to that, so I'll start with the Man United one. You're right. The Glazers taking £2 billion out the club is a problem. It's a problem, and I would completely and utterly agree that United fans should still be focused on our owners, although they believe by about the middle of next month the new buyers will be in place. That's one thing there. We'll get on to what should happen with the titles a little bit later, but I agree with that element there. Like, even if we were awarded 3 titles, it wouldn't undo the bad running of the football club. That stuff still remains in place. Your thing about Jeff Bezos and did he care about other delivery companies? No. But if there was a law in the state that he was operating in or in the country at large in America that stated that you could only reinvest, say tomorrow America came out of a law and it stated that you can only reinvest X percentage or a maximum of X amount of millions of dollars back into your business to grow it, to allow competition to flourish. If that law existed and Bezos broke it, then he would be in trouble. Now, whether that law...
I'll just stop you right there. You said competition to flourish.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Because there are competition laws in this world. There are competition laws in certain businesses, even in the UK, so that certain companies can't have a bigger monopoly of certain industries. They do exist in business. My point is that if it did exist, then Bezos couldn't do that. But the rule didn't exist. If FFP didn't exist, then nothing City have done would be wrong. Whether it should or it shouldn't, it was introduced for one reason, and it was introduced by Europe in Europe to stop clubs spending more money than they actually earn. And the reason, one of the biggest reasons they did this is look what happened to Rangers, look what happened to Portsmouth, look what's happened to Bury, look what happened to Leyton Orient as examples. Those clubs got new owners that came in who spent more money than the club could afford to continue spending. They were giving out contracts that if that owner walked away, the club would go bankrupt trying to spend. They built up debts galore. Now, maybe Sheikh Mansour would never allow that to happen to Manchester City. Maybe Sheikh Mansour would never, ever leave them in a situation where they were high and dry and they would go out of business. But FFP needed to be introduced to stop clubs being at massive risk. Because if the Sheikh leaves, so do all these sponsors in Abu Dhabi. They all go. Where's their income going to come to pay Haaland whatever it is he's earning, $500,000+ a week? They wouldn't have it and be able to afford to do it. Do I think FFP should be stricter against certain clubs? Do I like the direction they're going in now, which is going to limit you to spending up to a certain percentage of your turnover? Absolutely. Do I also think that there's a world where we'll just let owners come in and spend what they want? I agree with that to a certain degree, element, but there still has to be a protection in place. There still has to be something created that will stop that club from going out of business. Because how would you feel if that law came in, a billionaire comes into Arsenal and for 10 years spends more than anybody else, but then runs up huge debts? And when I say debts, I'm talking huge wage bills, huge infrastructure costs, and then says, I'm leaving, sells it for a pittance because he doesn't need the money because he's a billionaire. And then the club is left with outgoings that outweigh its income by double and Arsenal Football Club went out of business and no longer existed because of that one owner, would you be happy with that as an Arsenal fan? Would you be happy to even take that risk?
You're using the most backwards logic.
But that's
ever.
literally the reason they brought it in. How's it backwards?
No, it isn't. You said a minute ago, FFP was brought in to help businesses, football clubs all flourish and healthy competition. Rubbish.
I was partly. No. I didn't.
You did. You can rewind it.
I said it was brought in to stop clubs spending more money than they earn.
You said, and I tried to stop you, and you just said, no, let me talk. Yeah, so I let you talk. 5 minutes later, you forgot what you said 5 minutes ago. You said it was to help other clubs and businesses flourish. Yeah,
no, I said that about the Jeff Bezos example. I said about Jeff Bezos that if a rule came in America that stopped you investing to create more competition and help other business flourish, then he wouldn't be able to invest as much. But when it comes to FFP, I literally stated.
So the law would be that it's the same as FFP then? That's what you're saying?
That isn't what I'm saying. I said it coming for two reasons.
So what was the comparison then?
You brought that comparison up.
You just said if there was a rule that coming for Jeff Bezos not to be able to invest as much as he can and much as he wants, it'd help other businesses flourish.
Yes.
On that basis, you're using Man City as the Jeff Bezos
and
FFP to help other clubs flourish.
Lee, I didn't say it would help other businesses flourish. I said if they brought a law in to stop you investing as much in your business, if they brought the law in to help other people flourish, then Bezos wouldn't be able to do that. But you gave a business example, and business examples don't have a Premier League table where a trophy is given out at the end of the season. FFP was introduced for two reasons, and I explained them clearly. One,
FFP wasn't. I'll tell you two reasons why
it was introduced to stop clubs spending more than they earn, and it was partly brought in as well to try and keep competition a little fairer. We know for a fact that big European clubs and big European leagues don't like how much money the Premier League has got in general, let alone owners like Chelsea and at the time City had. And it was Chelsea that really kicked this off because City had only had the shake in for about 2 years before FFP came in. I understand people's logic that they go, owners should be able to spend what they want. And you've said that. So my question to you is, would you be willing to take the risk of having a bad owner like Portsmouth?
Yeah, I would.
So you would take a risk of going out of business?
I would take a risk. Yeah, but tell me, that ain't ever going to happen.
Why?
Name me, what's the biggest club that has gone out of business in our lifetimes? Name the biggest club that has actually gone out of business in our lifetimes. Tell us.
So say that again?
Tell me the biggest football club that has gone out of business in our lifetime.
The biggest football club that's gone out of business, Rangers.
In England.
In England,
gone out of business. They're second in the league.
Well, they went out of business and they had to start a brand new
club. They got relegated.
Hang on a minute. No, that's false. That's false. Rangers was liquidated. So again, do your history on this. Rangers were relegated and put to the bottom of the pyramid, but it was a brand new formed club. They had to fight in court to be allowed to keep the titles next to their name. But it was a brand new formed club. Okay. Now, the reason is this, though. Big clubs have been close to going out in business in the past and people have stepped in. The difference is this, and the world has changed somewhat. When billionaires started coming in and spending billions, there's only a handful of people in the world that could ever pick up that debt. When clubs were like for 200 grand in debt, a few million in debt, there were local millionaires that could pull them out of that. When suddenly clubs were spending billions of pounds on transfers, and trust me, if FFP didn't exist, City would be spending 3 or 4 billion pounds by now. They run up debts of 3 or 4 billion quid, and no one else wants to buy it after the shake and take that debt on and spend in the same way. Because, by the way, it's only been a handful of billionaires that have come in and done a great job on the football pitch in the way Roman did, the Sheikh has done, PSG have that. Loads of clubs have billionaires who haven't done that. Example being, like, your owners at Arsenal. Man United have got billionaires. Spurs have got billionaires, and they're not running the same way. So the risk is there. Now, do I agree with you in certain elements that FFP is restrictive? Do I think that clubs should be able to, their owners should be able to invest a little bit more? Yes. What my suggestion was years ago is that if an owner wants to invest £5 billion, whatever the running cost of spending that is, he should have to put the money into a bond that he can never touch, that is there for that can cover 5, 6, 7 years of the salaries that he's committing to. So if he walks away, the club can pay those salaries and slowly bring down its spending so it doesn't go out of business. That would be a much better way of operating. But the point is this, though, Lee, FFP exists. They have broken the rules. They can't put a defense forward in the arbitration.
Broken the rules.
if they've broken the rules, their defense can't be, but the rules are crap. That's not a defense, Lee.
Well, can I speak now? FFP was brought in to protect the elite level football clubs, not to help the football pyramid, Terry. But because if you're allowed to spend 75% of your income, but you're Brentford, how are you ever going to be able to strive to be the best team in England? How is that even going to work?
Easy.
It's going to take decades.
Yes.
If you're even lucky to
organic,
have...
organic.
Okay, hold on. That's great. That's fantastic. Cool. Yeah, now go back through the history of football since day dot. Which teams in the whole of history pretty much every season win the league titles in their respective countries, Terry? Since football began. Oh, yes, the ones that had the most money. My club were called the Bank of England Club. So all these Arsenal fans that are out here chatting absolute garbage last night and garbage today about, oh, yes, it's disgusting how much Man City were doing. Yeah, brown envelopes, mate. We got back in the league at Tottenham's expense and we were called the Bank of England Club after being relegated. Learn the history of our football club before you start going and mugging off another football club for doing exactly what we did back then. Right? Now, the second reason FFP has come into place is because now the jobs for the boys, the elite founder members of the football club, of the Football League, the Premier League, Manchester United, Arsenal, Everton, Tottenham, them founder member teams can now sit there and nobody can break into them. And then what happens is when Manchester City break into that, which they have done, now fast forward all these years later, we're going to investigate them. Why did they put a stop on Newcastle's owners? Why did they try so hard to stop Newcastle having them owners? Because they don't want somebody breaking into that Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, the founder member clubs, right? Now, fast forward again, in 10 years' time down the road, I guarantee Newcastle will be in the same situation. Why are the FA allowing the Glazers to strip 2 billion quid out of a football club with no ambition to try and win and be successful, to try and make the league bigger and better, because a successful Man United does that, by the way. A successful Arsenal does that, by the way. Why does it allow Brighton's billionaire owner to sell players off 10, 15 times more than he brought them for and never reinvest that back into his team? Ever. They make a profit year on year on year on year. They have not won a trophy for 121 years. So why is it allowed for all these billionaire owners, and there's 18 out of 20 teams that have got billionaire owners in this league, how is it allowed that 18 owners that are billionaires, the majority of them, it don't matter if they don't win, Enix another one, FSG is another one, they're just comfortable making mass profits, but then a Mansour wants to win, wants to try and do some loopholes here and there, and that is seen as bad. I'm sorry, it's pathetic. He wants to be the most successful, and unfortunately, that's seen as bad.
So again, logically, there's nothing wrong with what you've said, and I understand that, but you have to operate within the rules and the laws of the game that exist. It's like, it's just the way.
Which is why I said they shouldn't exist, Terry.
Yeah, I understand that, but that isn't the point. Equally, you've conflated a few things. I want to break them down. So firstly, you're absolutely right. The FA shouldn't allow the Glazers to do what they've done. However, there is now rules. You can't buy clubs on leveraged debt. So you will never be able to buy a club in the way the Glazers bought Manchester United. That's fundamentally impossible moving forward. That will never happen again. I absolutely agree with you that clubs shouldn't be for external profit. All profit should be given back to fans and or invested back into the squad. So you could go, I made £5 million profit this year. Do you know what we're going to do? Everyone who's had a season ticket holder for 20 years or more, you get it for free for life. I'm just throwing out a suggestion, right? There's loads of things
Arsenal
they can
just
do.
Put theirs up, by the way, and took 4 games off the ticket next season.
As I've said, right, that you can turn around and there's loads of things that could be done. And I think that's absolutely right. But none of that is a defense for what Man City have done. Now, equally, with other reasons that the FFP has been brought in, it's to, keep the elites together and that type of thing. I think there's an element of truth in that. But equally, I've never been somebody that's been against spending. I've never been against Chelsea spending their money. And in fact, City fans think I've gone left and I'm turning on them. I've always stated, if you're innocent and you're not breaking rules, the way you run and you're running your club this brilliantly, then I've got no issues with it. I have no issues with these kind of owners coming in to a degree. But there has to be some sort of limit to it. Otherwise, you just create a situation where just having the richest owners is what's going to make you the most successful teams. You spoke about how long will it take Brentford to get to Man United's level. It's in size, structure, and fan base. Yeah, it might take them as long as it's taken Manchester United 130 years, but it's organic to a
Well,
point.
hold on. It's not taken Man United 130 years to be one of the biggest clubs on the planet, Terry. Let's not play games here. Yeah, Man United have been one of the biggest clubs. Man United, only yesterday, yeah, it was the anniversary of the Busby Babes, right?
Yes.
And were Man United one of the biggest clubs on the planet back then?
Yes,
Thank
but
you.
why? But
there you
why?
go. It took 130 years then, is it?
Yeah, but again, you asked a question, but that wasn't the point I was making. If you let me,
the point you dropped in. No, it took 130 years. Well, it didn't.
It's taken 130 years to get to a point where we're turning over nearly £700 million of income. Why has that happened? It's because of what we've built over that time. Man United, a lot of Man United fans get accused of, you only had fans in London from the Premier League onwards. Man United had a 55,000 London membership group in the 50s. Before the Busby Babes accident happened, there was 50,000 Man United fans. And why did this happen? So what did Man United do that was innovative, everybody will ask? Well, Man United were one of the first clubs to start doing pre-season tours, both nationally and internationally. So Man United would go to towns and cities, play what at the time was some of the most exciting football in the world. Football Taught by Matt Busby was a song that United fans were singing through the 50s because kids would come and watch United play against their local team and go, look at the way they move the ball. Look how quick they are. Look at the skills. Wow, I fell in love with it. So they built this fan base. So Matt Busby went to America and watched them. I think it was American football. And he came back and said to the club, we've got to build boxes. And they're like, what? We've got to build these boxes. You charge people more money for them. They get a box and they get some food. So Man United started building boxes at the club in the 50s because Sir Matt Busby saw it in a different sport, in a different industry, and brought it to the Premier League. The point I'm making is...
So what you're saying is because they were going on pre-season tours back then and they were getting executive boxes, they were earning more income than every other team, so they could strengthen their team better and win more.
So again, but you're missing the point, Lee.
Well, I'm not, because that's what the man saw.
No. But that's organic. Man United saw innovative ways. But no, Lee, you're going off point because your question, your point was, how can Brentford ever get to that level? But you've got to do your history to understand it. It's like me saying it's unfair that I've started a book company and I'm not as big as Amazon yet. It'd take me years to catch up with Amazon, but I may never do it because Amazon were innovative.
No, because now you're limited to how much you can put into your book business, Terry.
Why?
Because there's restrictions, i.e. FFP. So now you can only spend, like if you've got 150 grand sat in your bank account, cash money in your bank, and you want to set up a business or buy a business that sells lighters and manufactures lighters, yeah? But there's a lighter company that is the world's greatest lighter company, but you've just bought a failing business, yeah? And now you're told that you can't spend any, you can only send a percentage of that money in your bank account. Yeah, because the business is failing. The revenue is not that great. Yeah, you're only allowed to spend a tiny little bit of that over the next 3 years of your actual cash. Yeah, because you have to spend and invest what your company is earning. How does that make any sense? Why can an owner not spend what he wants? It make sense. It don't make sense to me, Terry.
Because you're taking this, the business example. I understand where you're coming from. Depends what business you're in, by the way. Okay, so if you're in a business in the UK that has competition laws, like television, they can't just pump into it into every area what they want. As an example, they can't get everything they want. There's competition laws. However, in sport, you're not just a business; it's also competition, and they want the ground to be as fair as possible. However, hang on a second, let me finish my point. That lighter company example you gave, how do you compete? Well, if you buy a failing lighter business and you want to go up against the big boys, you have got to create something that's innovative and is different and that gives your potential customers something different from everybody else. So what Brentford need to do, as the example now, is continue to grow and develop this beautiful looking football. Over the years, it's going to be a slower burner because it isn't a service, because in football, it's tribal. So you're not going to suddenly, overnight, get, like with phones, I might bring out a brand new phone that's better than the iPhone. You might get 100,000 people switch. That won't happen in football. It takes time. You have to be around for the new generation. You need to pick up the new generation who are picking their football teams. How would Brentford do that? By continuing to grow, develop, play beautiful football, be attractive to the local community, be attractive to the wider people outside. The comparison isn't the same as a business in terms of speed because of the industry, but it can be done. Now, I don't have an issue with an owner injecting money. And you can invest money in your football club now. It is just limited. Now, can they increase that limit? Yes, maybe they can. And I'm not against that. But that isn't the argument here. The argument is, have they broken the rules? And if they have broke the rules, should they be in trouble? There is no...
And if we fast forward and go back 30 minutes ago, I said they should be relegated.
No, and I understand. and I completely and utterly understand that. But my point to a lot of the viewers is that FFP is a bad rule, so I don't care if we've cheated. That don't make sense to me. That's not right.
Terry, how is it cheating to want to make your club more successful? I'm sorry, that makes no sense.
But it's again, you're looking at there was a line from a great film once that said, "There's no such thing as a perfect man, just perfect intentions." Sheikh Mansour is just trying to win doing it for the right reasons. Doesn't make his actions right. Doesn't make if the rules are there, the rules are there, bro. Look, we've got a lot of super chats here. I've got to try and get through. There's about 35 of them. So we can't have running commentary on every single one.
No,
no, otherwise we will literally be.
You're lucky I've got a headache because I've just been sat back. I've had a headache all day, man.
Hang on. I've got to get through these. Sorry, thank you. That first shit. Afternoon, Terry. How is everything, my brothers? Funny how Lee loaned himself to City and it's gone to shit. Yeah, maybe it's Lee's fault. City will get the 3-piece, 1 transfer ban, 2 points deducted, 3 relegation. 24 is coming and pending investigation. I love that, David. This here says anyone who argues against FFP doesn't remember Portsmouth, is what A has got to say here. Look, what I will say on that one quickly is I think there's a balance here where I think more should be allowed to be injected. But then, like I said, my issue with it being injected, again, it's hard to go back because YouTube didn't exist back then. I didn't really have an issue with people investing their own money. My concern was more around what happens if they pull away and the club goes out of business. You just create a bond. Which holds money.
A stupid argument, by the way, because the people that do this due diligence, the FA, the Premier League, etc., they allowed that geezer in when he blatantly didn't have any money.
No, I understand that, but Leyton Orient's a prime example of someone that was a billionaire. I think the guy that bought Leyton Orient was worth £7 billion. And he almost made it. If it weren't for the guys that own Dunkin' Donuts, who could they were literally days away from going out of business. And the problem, the one thing I would say is this though: the amount of clubs going out of business has grown exponentially since richer people have started buying them as toys. And what we don't know, and this is one of those things where you'll agree one way or the other. If FFP didn't come in 11, 12 years ago, maybe we would have seen some much bigger clubs go out of business with bad owners potentially coming in, but we'll never know. Bias jobs worth Terry. Lee is right. Next season, they should start with minus 35 points, something like that. The Premier League despise City and hate our era. Let's owners spend. They should start with. So you're saying Lee's right. They should start with the points deduction, but then calling me a jobs worth for saying they cheated and potentially cheated. Then you're saying let owners spend.
Because what he's saying is if the rules are in place, there is rules there. If they've broken them, dock them or relegate them, whatever. But at the same time, he's then saying the rules are stupid. Let owners spend.
There we go. By Lee's logic, anyone rich equals guilty of. I don't know what that Smith.
I have no idea.
I don't know what that last little bit means. City fans mad at us. Your board built the pool. They were just here for the pool. We're just here for the pool party. We feel for you, but not your club. Terry is 100% correct. Fair treatment. They are breaking Premier League laws. Terry brings on Lee to learn how to become a lawyer. If City owners leave, the club is bankrupt. Well, this will be the irony, Lee, in FFP. You have to see if City owners leave at this point, they could. This would be the. I would love this to happen just to be able to go, Lee, you were wrong. If Sheikh Mansour sells because of this and then City go bankrupt and collapse and never recover because
who owns Etihad Airlines?
Him.
Okay, but that's okay. He's allowed to sponsor the stadium and call it Etihad Airlines. That's cool, but he's not allowed to do what he's being sanctioned for.
I don't think he actually owns. I don't think he personally owns the airline.
No, he's probably a majority shareholder or a stakeholder or something.
Yeah, so
it's exactly the same as what he's being sanctioned for.
It isn't the same. It isn't the same. Let me explain it to you, Lee. What business do the Cronkies own in America? What massive business do they own?
Walmart.
Well,
so he actually, that's a lie. Technically, they don't own it. It's his wife that owns it, and wife's family that own it.
Let's keep it basic though, right? So if Walmart
no, because it fits your narrative.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay, the Kroenke family, like his family own it, right?
Walmart. They don't.
His wife's not his family.
Terry, his wife's parents own Walmart.
Okay,
that's not his.
Okay, but the example doesn't suit the narrative, but that's fine. The Kroenke's wife's family own Walmart, right?
Mm.
Okay, cool. If Walmart sponsor the Emirates for £100 million a year, is there a problem with that?
If Walmart sponsor the Emirates,
100 million a year, is that
the Walmart Stadium?
Yes. Is that a problem with the rules, in your opinion?
It's not a problem at all because Stan Kroenke don't own Walmart.
Okay,
Stan Kroenke's wife's parents do.
Cool. Let's get through this quick. But if Stan Kroenke pumps £100 million a year into Walmart, and then Walmart just take that 100 million and transfer it into Arsenal's bank accounts, that breaks the rules.
Well, that's dumb, isn't it?
But that's what City are being accused of.
Yeah, which I've said all the way through this show is dumb. How dare you want to make your club better?
But the Etihad Airways thing is different. So if a sponsor's owned partly by the owner, and that company's turnover is $1 billion a year, and they're taking 10 million of that and giving it to Man City, that's no issue. It's a real sponsor from a real business that's pumping in their business turnover, their business profits into a sponsorship. But if the money is just being siphoned in one window out the other to kind of create a kind of a false narrative,
which is breaking no criminal laws, and they're paying the tax on their satellite companies in the countries they're registered in, what's the issue?
Because that's against the competition laws.
The competition laws that only help the elite clubs anyway.
I'm convinced Lee had a support teacher at school. That's a bit harsh. Nothing will happen. I'm just here for the jokes. Terry, please read this. Prem introduced the no appeal law because they wanted to specifically go at City. This organization is corrupt. Thoughts. My thoughts are everybody signed up to that rule and that law, including City. So City knew what they were entering. And what I will say about City is if they're completely innocent and they haven't done any of this, it'll be very, very easy to prove. All they need to show is that the financial records and bank statements of the companies that sponsor them, and they'll be able to get them because they're owned by the same people that fucking own the club, their own bank statements, all the contracts with their sponsors. They'll be able to prove it. They'll be able to show. It wouldn't even take long to prove it. But my thoughts on them signing up to that rule, well, City agreed to sign up to it, so it's on them. And it's not as if they're a 10-year-old child that's signing a bit of paper they don't understand. They've got the best lawyers in the world. Hey, Thierry and Lee, hope you're both well. Can you both offer your opinions on whether you think both City and Liverpool have been underperforming due to fatigue? We'll come to that a little bit later in the show. We'll keep that one starred, my friend. Please don't unstar that one, KJ. Big Steve here. Lee, you can't educate pork, mate. Listen, the difference is, I do think though we're at like a thing here. I'm not saying every element of FFP is even great, but the point is this: it's not, and I can get Lee's argument. I'm not even against Lee's thoughts that FFP shouldn't exist. I don't care that he doesn't think it shouldn't exist. I'm speaking to the City fans and saying it's not a defense of your football club if they've broken those rules, because you've again every season you sign up to them. Lee, there are laws against monopolies of a company. There are
really on that basis, yeah. Monopolies on companies. How comes one guy runs 3 different social media platforms?
Because that industry isn't regulated that way.
Well, it is. He weren't allowed to buy Snapchat.
Well, maybe at the limit. Again, I would have to get a specialist on to speak about them. Can you tell this guy never went to college? No, I didn't go to college, actually, to be fair. Lee is cooking beef Wellington with jollof rice. 2 different scenarios, bro.
I'd be more worried, David, about your owners taking 2 billion quid out of your football club, mate.
You can't compare business to sport. It's all about making it fair. Everyone gets set the same limit. You can't exceed it to make yourself better. But where I agree to a degree with Lee on this, though, is I don't think it should all be fair. If Arsenal shouldn't be limited to spending what Brighton can spend, because Arsenal have built the right over decades to spend more because they've been a better run club in the earlier days, created more success, grew that success, grew their fan base, and they deserve the benefits of that. Do I think it's right that someone could tomorrow can just turn up with the same money because of a new owner? I think there needs to be a limitation of how much owners can pump into their own football clubs. There needs to be an element of organic growth, an element of investment from owners, but maybe a bit more than what they're getting now. But there needs to be a balance. But the most important thing is to protect clubs long term to make sure they don't go out of business. Grow up, Lee, is what C says here. Lee, right? The rules in and of themselves are a joke. Before and after FFP clubs are bust at some rate. Premier League plan to go at Man City. La Liga doing all they can to help Barca. Joke. Do you feel like the Premier League are purposely targeting Man City though?
Well, listen, I don't know what other clubs have done, Terry, but I can tell you that I'm pretty adamant. Yeah, and if I could have been a fly on the wall in a lot of boardrooms, mate, then I'm pretty sure that most clubs have broken certain rules. Yeah, but they've just got away with them here and there and everywhere. Like I said about the length of the grass, and like when we spoke at the beginning of the show, there's things that football clubs have got away with because of that football club. Yeah, they don't like the fact that Man City have come in and just made a mockery, of the league by going out and being the most successful team in it since pretty much they got here. Yeah, because again, that's why they set up FFP to stop a team like Manchester City going from being down in a different division, getting spanked 8-0 by Middlesbrough, coming into the league with a multi-billionaire or a consortium of multi-billionaires and going and ripping apart the founder members of the league. They want to protect the founder members, mate. That's it.
And I understand that. I think there is an element of that. But how far do you take that with other laws of the game? So Liverpool are famous for utilizing the back pass rule. You're probably old enough to remember the remnants of that. They go 1-0 up and they keep passing it back to the goalkeeper for the rest of the game. So how far do you take changing of the laws in the game? Say a new law comes in that kind of hinders your club's tactics slightly. Should they just keep breaking those rules and keep doing it because it helps them? Like, where do you draw the line in football? Is it just off the pitch stuff, on the pitch stuff? If there's suddenly there are a lot of people that feel like the 5-sub rule benefits the big teams, including City, and it should have stayed out. Like, when these law changes come in, there's always, in my opinion, whether it's on the field laws or rules and laws and regulations off the pitch, there's always winners and losers, in my opinion. And because someone's going to feel hard done by because, I preferred it when there was less subs, or I liked it when the pass back rule existed, or it was much better when the owners could invest whatever they wanted. But the thing is, and the reason I don't think there was investment caps in the past is because billionaires with that kind of wealth didn't own the football clubs, and there were millionaires that spent money.
It was all relative. The income wasn't as big then.
No, I understand that, but even with someone like Jack Walker who bought Blackburn, there was still a limit to his money. The difference is, and I have no issue, by the way, with anybody from the Middle East buying a football club, but I use them as an example. Bezos will now go into this, and Elon Musk would fall into this category. These people are not just rich. They essentially have endless money. So there's only so much like certain other millionaires and owners could spend. So I understand there being a need to limit it to a degree. But it's interesting to see what people think on that. More super chats here. This one says 100% Man United and Arsenal have manipulated their books, but Man City have overdone it to a massive scale, which is why the Prem are taking action. And again, let's see on that. I mean, what has been reported today is that Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham have all been demanding heavy punishments, including City being removed from the league if they're found guilty of a large amount of these big infractions. And you could understand why those clubs would want to do it. The interesting thing is Chelsea pushing for it, because you would kind of normally, Chelsea and City used to sit in this little club of like super rich owners. So it's interesting.
Besties, they're fans. Besties.
Yeah. You are confused. FFP destroys small clubs.
Facts.
Well, I think, listen, again, I've never said that FFP is the most perfectly run thing in the world. I've definitely criticized elements of it. And you guys have watched enough streams of mine. Remember when COVID hit? My biggest concern was making sure money filtered down to the bottom and ensure that smaller clubs in different parts of the world were protected. Because for me, it's not even the football club. It's the working class communities around them that need to be protected. So I don't disagree.
Which, by the way, another fantastic point you've raised. I forgot to mention this earlier. I've been to the Etihad Stadium quite a lot. I've seen us get absolutely smashed every time I've been there. But what they have done for the local area, for the local community, Yeah, their training facilities all around the stadium. Yeah, it is insane. Now you go to the other side of Manchester, to your football club. It's night and day. It's absolutely night and day. They're being ripped apart, but they've helped the local community. They've helped local businesses. I know Man United probably do that as well. But if you look at what they've done in rejuvenating the area, and then you go and have a look at Manchester United and what they've done, they've got a roof that leaks. They've got rats running around on the pitch. They've taken £2 billion out the football club, but the FA go, no, that's fine, mate. Yeah. We'll let you crack on, mate. Yeah.
No, I do hear you on that, bro. I do hear you on that. And I think that element of what City's done, I've always praised and always will. Terry, the law that's like FFP in America's corporations is called the antitrust law. This stops companies from cornering a market. That's why Bezos doesn't control all the deliveries in America. Okay, thank you very much for educating me on that. This here from Ryan says FFP is imperative to the value of the Premier League. There is money to be made and lost from league positions. There has to be a financial regulation. And I agree that there does need to be a regulation, but it just needs, maybe there needs to be a bit more leeway in it.
It's imperative to the value of the Premier League. That is exactly nail on the head. Because if the teams that normally finish, hence the Big Six, top four race and all that BS, right? It keeps the cycle of income coming in for the Premier League. Yeah, if you had Brighton finishing top, Brentford finishing second, whilst Arsenal and Man United were sat down in 8th, do you think the income for the Premier League would be as it is now? It wouldn't, would it? So FFP doesn't help these clubs. The owner of Brighton is worth how much? He bought Brighton when they were down in Division 2 or whatever, and he's a billionaire then. He's got them all the way up to the Premier League, sells off all his best players every year for stupid profits, and never reinvests a massive load of that back into the club. That should be regulated.
Yeah, and maybe it should be. However,
because he's just making profit.
Hang on, but you're forgetting one thing here. The Premier, who owns the Premier League?
Who owns the Premier League?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trick. The Premier League. It's the Premier League, right?
League, yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, what?
Yeah, it's not a trick question, but Lee, it's kind of like a trick question. If I start a competition tomorrow, and it's mine, who gets to dictate what the rules are to enter my competition?
Well, you do, because it's your competition.
Exactly. And if you choose to sign up to it,
which is why they wanted to break away into a Super League, because they've had enough.
Yeah, but then they bottled that and they didn't go through with it. They said no to it in the end. The one thing I would say is this: whether people like FFP or not, it's the Premier League is owned by the Premier League. It's their league. These are our rules and regulations. This super chat is probably right. It's imperative to the Premier League that it remains. So the Premier League earns its money, and the Premier League makes out of this what it wants to make out of it. But that's their right. And City and anyone and fans here that watch the Premier League, stop. If you don't like the way FFP works, stop watching European football. They're the rules. Like I agree with it.
There's one other thing as well I wanted to say, because I forgot to mention this earlier, right? There's two football clubs that are apparently up for sale, Man United and Liverpool. What does this do to the handful of billionaires that are looking to buy these clubs, right, between the two? Would you want to come and buy Manchester United, right, and make them successful, or Liverpool and make them successful, when you know that the team that is now being sanctioned was trying to make them successful and has done a good job in winning titles? Or does that message that they're sanctioning this team show, well, actually, yeah, we don't want successful. We just want crap owners in the league that are just going to fleece the football clubs. What does that do? This is bad news for the Premier League, Terry. Because you've got owners that are crap, we've got owners that are crap. So Tottenham and Liverpool, and we're 4 of the founder members.
But it's not. See, this is what I think you're forgetting or you're missing on this point, Lee. Man United, you can invest in your club. So there's about £100 million every 3 years you can invest in buying players' transfers. You can do about another 100 million or so towards salaries. There's also hundreds of millions more you can invest for infrastructure, training facilities. So you can invest over a 3-year period, financial year period, hundreds of millions of pounds into your football club. So that can be done. That isn't going to stop. But Man United have such a big commercial arm. We don't need an owner that's going to throw £2 billion of his own money into us over a 15-year period. As long as we're debt free, Man United is completely self-sufficient and profit making. We just want So it won't impact Man United being sold at all. It won't impact it one little bit.
No, I never said that. I said, what message does it send out? Yeah, to potential owners of Man United or potential owners of Liverpool.
It sends a message, don't cheat.
Well, no, it sends a message that if we want to be successful and we want to throw as much money as we can at it and find loopholes around doing that, we're going to get sanctioned. So, you know, you're sitting there saying Man United are self-sufficient. Yes, they are. They're one of the biggest powerhouses in world football. Yeah, mate, at the end of the day, your owners have taken 2 billion quid out of your football club. You're sitting there arguing the size of Man United and blah, blah, blah. And we don't need this. Imagine if you had put that 2 billion quid that they have taken out into your football club on pitch. Yeah, because it's your income. They've took your income out, yeah?
No, and that's why I want them gone.
No, wait. But they've taken 2 billion quid out of the football club's income. It's not their money. They've taken it out of the football club's money, 2 billion.
Yeah.
Now imagine if they had invested that whole 2 billion over the course of time they took it out. How much more successful would Man United be?
Exactly.
Well, you're saying exactly, but no, you've just sat there arguing all the way through. Yeah, and just sat there right now and said, we don't need somebody to come in and throw billions of pounds at it.
We don't.
Oh, my days.
Man United has spent as much.
You've not won a trophy for 6 years and you're saying you don't need the money.
It's got nothing to do with money. Man United,
of course it has.
It hasn't. Man United, let me just explain this. I must have said this on every Glazer Out rant ever. We have spent as much money as City in the last decade. But we haven't been run properly. We haven't had the right people at board level making footballing decisions. We haven't picked the right managers. We've bought the wrong players. Yes, I would have liked the money that's been taken out of the football club from dividends and the selling of non-voting right shares to be invested into the football club. But if Man United had no debt and we weren't servicing hundreds of millions of pounds of debt and we had a good running board, our own income itself we'd be able to spend more than we've already spent, which is colossal amounts, and we'd be able to reinvest in our own infrastructure. So we don't need someone to come in and go, there's £2 billion investment for us to still be the richest club in England.
I understand that. I didn't say anything against that, Terry.
The point I'm making, Lee, is that this isn't going to deter or make any potential owner of Man United go, oh, maybe I don't want to own a Premier League club because they let the Glazers run that badly and City have been cheating. It will make no difference.
Terry, you just sat there and said, right, you don't need somebody to come in and pump billions of pounds in to make Man United successful. Yeah, you've made wrong decisions at board level and so on and so forth. Yeah, your words, right? So on that basis then, if the Glazers wanted to run the club properly and didn't take the 2 billion quid out, you would have bought better players. You would have had better people in the boardrooms because they would have actually given a toss. Therefore, you would have become more successful. That is my point. And the chat can't get their head around it either because winning was finished in football a long, long time ago. FFP is another damning indictment of modern football.
So what I'm hearing from you is, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, so instead of less regulation like FFP, you want more regulation that controls how much can be pumped in. And also,
I want you to be able to spend whatever you want. Mansour has got endless pots of money. If he wants to go and spend 2 billion quid next transfer window,
okay. So how do you regulate that, though, and ensure that they're not overspending and putting the club at risk of going out of business in 5, 10, 15 years' time? Because at the same time, I get your point that clubs should be regulated so they can't drain money out the club that puts it at risk. So what would you then, if an owner can spend as much billions as he wants, what's the regulation in place that stops him from just walking away and leaving the club in a massive hole?
Then you put a regulation in place to say that he can't just walk away and leave the club in a shit state. Not difficult, is it?
So again, you agree. You want more regulation, not less.
No. Don't try putting words in my mouth, Terry. Yeah? You should be allowed to spend everything you want. If you've got 20 billion quid in your bank account, you should be allowed to spend every single penny of that to make your football club that you own successful. At the end of that, I understand what you're saying.
But how do you regulate? So
I'll get into that.
Okay, but so I want to come back a bit though, because we're going away from it. How do you then regulate, Lee, that spending money doesn't equal being run well? We've established that.
I never said it did.
I know. I'm not saying that either. But if you're spending that much, you have to have regulation in to make sure it's all being done right. Yes. So you want more regulation on spending, taking money out, how well they're running the club, what decisions the board are making, everything. You want more regulation.
No. Where have I said that? I've said you should be allowed to spend whatever you want.
But how do you manage that? How does the Premier League? You're saying that potential owners could
The
be
Premier League don't need to manage that because it's Sheikh Mansour's money. If he wants to spend 2 billion quid in the transfer window, why can't he go and buy Messi, Neymar, Mbappe? He can go and buy Haaland. Well, he's already got him. He could go and buy any player he wants and spend 2 billion in the window. Why can't he do that?
I'll tell you why he shouldn't be allowed to just do that with no regulation. Let's say he goes and spends, I don't bloody know, £700 million on players, and the wage bill is they're paying all those players £1 million a week each to come and sign for him to play at Newcastle. What happens in 18 months' time if he goes, I'm leaving?
What, the owner?
The owner, Newcastle would not have enough income to pay the wages of those players.
And that is the only regulation, which I said 5 minutes ago, that I would have in place. That when an owner comes in, there is one regulation that you have that you cannot leave that club, until there's adequate funding coming into it, i.e. through a sale. So you've sold it, or you have to get the club into the green, and then you leave.
Exactly.
Now, that is not FFP, Terry. No, wait.
Well, it is exactly. So let me just.
No, it's not.
It is. So FFP is stating you can't spend more than the club is generating. What you're doing though is FFP, but later down the line, you're essentially saying you can spend what you want as long as before you leave, the club is making enough money by itself to sustain that spending. That's FFP. Terry. That's FFP, Lee.
Oh, Terry, it's not FF. That's not FFP at all. That is saying, you're using an example here, that an owner's going to get into a position where they're super successful, the club wins absolutely everything, and then he goes, oh, fuck it, I'm bored, I'm leaving. Well, name me an owner that's done that.
But we haven't. Leighton Orient.
Terry, we're not talking elite level here. That is some tin pot football club that's been a tin pot football club for decades.
The reason that hasn't happened is because they've put regulation in place to stop it from happening.
This is jarring, you know.
It's jarring.
It's jarring. You should be allowed to spend whatever you want. When you leave the football club, you're not just going to leave the football club if it's worth 2, 3, 4, 6 billion quid. I don't care how much money you think you're worth or are worth. You're not going to walk away from a £5 billion football club.
It's not worth that much if you're not. Listen, your club is not. So listen, let me just explain this to you. Let me make this example. If Man City are only turning over £200 million a year right now organically, but they're spending £300 million a year on players, they're not a £1 billion club. You're worth what your club actually makes in turnover organically. Because when that old owner's billions fall away, you're not going to be able to spend in that same way. So no owner's going to come in and give you £5 billion for a club that only turns over £200 million a year. So they could just walk away. Someone who's worth 500 billion, like the owners of Newcastle, you think he couldn't afford to walk away from a club that's only worth 500 million pounds if he gets bored?
Name me a football club name me a football club in the Premier League that's only turning over 200 million. Name me one. Tell me. There's loads.
Right. So what's your point?
So my point is, you're saying, they could just walk away and blah, blah, blah. Cool. Brighton is probably earning less than 200 million a year.
Right.
In income, yeah? Brighton is earning less than 200 million a year.
Right.
That owner is a multi-billionaire. If that owner wakes up tomorrow and says, I want to invest 1 billion into my football club, why shouldn't he be allowed?
Because there's regulation right now.
Well, there you go.
I'm not saying I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed, but they are allowed to invest. What they're not allowed to do.
You just said they're allowed to invest 100 million on wages and 100 million on transfers.
You're not listening. They're not allowed to invest so that expenditure goes above what they earn, because then they're at risk of going out of business.
It's their own money, Terry.
Lee, but you've agreed with me. You've said you wouldn't let them leave until the club was self-sufficient.
Why would you, if you're the most successful, or you're one of the most successful, and Mansour is the most successful for the last 10 years, how much do you think Man City's worth? Like, real talk, how much do you reckon that football club's worth?
I've got no idea right now because we don't know what their real turnover is.
Well, no, that's just dumb. Yeah, they're in the Premier League. They're second in the table. They've won 4 titles in the last 5 years. They're always in Europe. They're all the way down to the latter stages. That club's worth at least 2 billion quid.
Okay, 2 billion, right?
Right, 2 billion. I don't care whether you've got 102 billion. You are not walking away from 2 billion, Terry. Yeah. So you're going to find somebody that's going to buy that football club before you leave. You're not just going to go, that's it, I'm shutting up shop. Bye-bye, Man City's folded. It don't work like that, Terry. You use an example of Leighton Orient. No disrespect, mate, yeah? Leighton Orient, since I was a kid, I've always been crap. Right? They have. A billionaire didn't take them to the promised land. But we're talking about elite level. That's not an elite level.
I understand your Lee. Like, I understand your point, but for me, I stand by this. I don't think owners should be allowed to spend willy-nilly without any regulation. You agreed with that, right?
No, I agreed in a certain way. No, because you're trying to put words in my
No,
mouth.
I'm
again,
not.
right?
Lee,
I
you're
said,
actually hurting my chest. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Lee. You said they shouldn't be allowed to sell until they've turned over it's self-sufficient. You said that, yes or no?
I said that they should be able to get that club back into financial equality that it was with its own fucking income. So yeah, you can say it. You can say,
regulation.
you can say it any which way you want. But why? Why would an owner of a successful football club that is an elite level want to walk away from the football club to begin with?
We have no idea. Maybe he dies and his family don't want it anymore.
You're using the most extreme level.
No,
okay, cool.
But you have to do this. Do you understand? Why do I have life insurance? In case I fucking die, so I can protect my kids. If you have no regulation and no things to stop pitfalls, maybe 90% of the clubs never get damaged. But the one where it happens could be fucked. That's why regulation exists. How many times have you been on an airplane that somebody tried to hijack?
Never.
But they search everybody every time. How many times a day does somebody try and get a bomb on an aeroplane? But they scan your bag every day. You have regulation in place that stops the 1 in 100, the 1 in 1,000, the 1 in 10,000. Regulation isn't there to stop bad things happening every day. It is in certain areas. That's my point. I've got to get through these super chats. I've still got 38 of the fuckers. Let me get through these things.
I'm supposed to be live in 10 minutes.
FFP came into place to fix the mistakes of allowing shady state ownerships in football who run clubs as marketing tools with no care for profits, is what Big Ash says here. There's truth in that. Terry had big money takeovers in the past. United had big money takeovers in the past. Yeah, and there's no issue with big money. I've got no issue if tomorrow Liverpool get bought by Qatar. You're not going to see me complain about where they're from or big money takeover. That isn't the issue at all. If it was impossible for teams to grow organically, then teams would never have leave League Two. Bournemouth have grown organically and now in the Premier League. Now, the best way for teams to grow is to scout newer talent, develop younger players, find the right staff, etc. That's from KJ. Thank you, KJ. This here says, after all this arguing, Premier League is a competition. Can we agree on that? If you break a rule of a competition, you get penalized, move on. Yeah, we kind of went into should FFP exist. US sports have a salary cap. Why they can't stop the best teams from buying everyone? It's called fair competition, which is which is what FFP is. I think you know what's funny with FFP, though, I will say this. Clubs who don't have owners willing to spend like that like it. Clubs that have owners that want to spend more don't. And you're always going to get that argument. Some will make it sound more conspiracy theory. Finally, some justice and more consensus of regulations needed in football world, just like the media. I don't know what the VE question mark means. Sorry. Only reason it will happen is FFP struck gold with City. This here says, if an athlete takes steroids, isn't cheating. Of course it is. We know it is. The guest is an absolute tool. Now, he's not a tool. Don't be rude, please. Has selective hearing. His rebuttals make no sense. Completely non-factual. FFP was created to level the playing field. This is by far the best ever football terrace stream. Thank you very much indeed.
To level the playing field, but a team that has an income of 20 million a year can't compete with a team that has an income of 500. How's that a level playing field? But if that team that has a 20 million income has a 10 billion pound owner, yeah, then it can be a level playing field. That makes no sense whatsoever. All this stream has highlighted to me is modern football is dusted, and the perception of you should be playing to win the major honours has lost a long time ago, Terry.
No, I hear you.
That's not you. I'm talking about in general with the comments and some of that.
I get you. Lee is anti-competition. Listen, I just want to say very quickly on that. It all depends on what side of the fence you sit on. So there are some that don't think Man United should be able to spend their millions because it isn't a level playing field. But I think, well, no, it's organically built. So therefore, we should be able to. I don't like what the NFL do. So I agree with parts of what Lee said. You might not have got that over the shouting. Funny how Cancelo leaves as this comes out. Cancelo snitched on City. Let me just say this very quickly. Arteta, it's not a player or an ex-coach who's snitched. There are reports. City have actually gone public and said they think someone's grasped on them. I'm a City fan, and I think City deserve to be punished if guilty, but do other elite clubs who are cheating but control the FA. I don't think anyone controls the FA personally, but I hear you.
Can I just say on the cheating side very quickly? Yeah, I can carry on. By the way, I just sent you a private. I can carry on. My show's nudged back an hour,
okay,
but so we can cover the other points if you want. But on the cheating, every time the ball goes out of play, why do both players put their hand up and say "my throw"? Is that not cheating? Yeah, when it's it's a goal kick. No, it's a corner. Why, when they know it came off for them and they're still claiming that's cheating, right? When they're diving, that's cheating, right? So we can talk about cheating in multiple different angles here. Yeah, but when it comes to putting money into a football club to make that club more successful, that's seen as wrong.
No, I hear you. I hear you. This here says the UAE owns City. Nothing will happen. Sunderland 700 million debt ended in League One. Then owner after bought on. Sorry, I sometimes struggle to read these. I don't know if it's me or the grammar. Ended in League One. Then owner after bought on parachute payments. Now we're out on our way back. Away the lads are mad to go. Thank you very much, Reese. I wasn't sure what side the argument you're on there, my friend, but thank you for the super chat. On Kroenke KSC, the difference is Walmart wouldn't gain by giving dollars to Arsenal versus City's owners. Etihad sponsors are literally the same entity. I hear you on that. We're talking more about the way of funneling the money, and again, that gets into sports washing and other conversations as well. Other clubs that are run as companies can't compete with multi-billion-dollar sports washing budgets by countries trying to look better to the world, is what Big Ash has got to say on this matter. Lee passionately twerking for City. Man's tearing up. Arsenal fans have no backbone, is what's been said here.
Arsenal fans don't have a backbone, hence why we haven't won a title for 19 years, mate.
1 second here. Someone here says City can appeal, but only to the same Premier League organization with 3 people running the case. They just can't appeal to CAS. Yeah, so they can keep appealing against the Premier League. They just can't appeal to CAS. The only reason Chelsea won the Premier League was because of Roman. Partly, massively. When people keep mentioning Chelsea, people seem to forget we got robbed through everything, and people are trying to bring our name into it. If we spend 600 million in one window, sus, yeah, but we have to play catch up. We're basically 2 years behind financially. Thank you, Nav, for that super chat, bro. Man City have not committed a crime in any jurisdiction. FFP is not legally binding. Man City slap on the wrist and a fine, nothing more. Well, it's not legally binding, but equally, it's their competition, and they can say this is what they've got to be really careful of. It depends on who they pass the penalty over to. Say they turn around and go, right, we're going to issue a penalty, and this is but it's got to be voted in by the other Premier League clubs. And those clubs all vote in and say, yeah, expulsion or points deduction or whatever else. For me, I'm not even up for point. I don't think points deductions or expulsion are right. I just think they should be stripped of, if they're proven to have done this, they should just be stripped of all the titles they've won. I don't actually think that I'd love them to be given to the rightful winners of those leagues those years. That's probably not going to happen. I just don't think they should. Their legacy should be taken away, because if at the end of this they get a points deduction of 30 points, so they don't win the league one year, but they keep all the trophies, then it was worth fucking cheating, weren't it? Do you know what I'm saying?
If you take their trophies away, yeah, Terry, you'll never forget Aguero. Yeah, you've lived through it. You've been there. You've done it. You've seen it.
But the legacy,
just because it doesn't show on the record books.
Yeah, but the legacy's gone though, and you know as well as I do. If it turns out they've cheated massively here, let's just say they've cooked their books to a point where they couldn't have afforded half these players, especially in those early years. It does undo that success. The same as if a guy wins 100 meters and then he fails a drugs test and he's on anabolic steroids. It taints it, and I think most City fans know. Yeah, they'll remember that moment, but it's not just an asterisk. It's genuine. We cheated to ensure we had that team that was capable of doing it. It's different from a player diving for a penalty because everybody's out there doing it.
I look at it the other way. They financially put in their own money to be successful. That should be seen as a good thing.
So you think City fans, if they get their titles taken away, if they did, you think taking the titles away, you think that would be harsh?
Well, listen, I'm not. It doesn't matter what I say, mate. There'll be somebody that always wants to fucking say I'm wrong anyway, so it don't matter, does it? It don't matter. Sorry, I don't support Man City, so I couldn't care less. My point is, an owner that wants to invest into a football club to make that football club successful, which is the aim of elite sport, is to be the best and win trophies. That should be lauded up, yeah, not put in the gutter. Whilst owners of the clubs that these people in the comments chatting about support Arsenal, support Man United, whose owners are shocking, Liverpool's owners shocking, Spurs owners shocking. That they should be venting their anger at them owners, because these owners at City have come in and said, right, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Yeah, but that is modern football. It don't matter if you don't win anymore.
So I've got a question for just to understand. I'm going to try and take this logic to another sport. I'm not even going to challenge it. I'm just going to ask. So if I'm a boxer, but I don't take it that seriously, I train hard, but I don't put my all into it, and I lose all my world title fights, but I do it cleanly. Do you respect a guy more who works his bollocks off, wants to be number one, but puts steroids in his arm to win it?
Well, that's a dumb question.
Why is that dumb?
Because they're not putting steroids in their players, Terry. Yeah, they're financially putting their money where their mouth is.
Financially dope. So, but I'm saying they're breaking. Okay, so not steroids.
No, because this is the phrase that's come out, financial doping.
So let me change it then. Let me change it then, Lee. So I'm still cheating. So I'm not working hard and I fail. So I'm a failure, but I did it cleanly. But this guy, he's cheating because, you know, he's put some extra padding in his gloves so they're harder when he punches the guy. So no doping, but he's still cheating. But he's only cheating because he really wants to win. Do you find that cheating to really want to win more honorable than the guy that fails but does it cleanly? Which one is the better person?
Terry, these are stupid comparisons.
Why are they stupid comparisons in your opinion?
Because they're not financially motivated. Yeah, they are. I want to win the title, so I'll put extra padding in my gloves. Yeah, to make my punches feel harder. Terry, if you are an owner of a football club and you buy the football club and you want to put your money into the football club to make that club the best and most successful, then why is that being ridiculed? I'm sorry. Every single football club's aim should be to win.
It's against the rule. This is the point I'm making. I don't think my examples are stupid. I'm just trying to understand where you draw the line on cheating. I get your logic that he's only doing it to win, but everybody that cheats in any capacity is only doing it to win. So my question is, when do you consider cheating wrong? At what point?
I said right at the very beginning of this show that if Man City are found to have broken any of these rules or laws, they should be relegated. I said that 5 minutes in.
I'm not saying you're saying they shouldn't be punished. I'm trying to ascertain what level of cheating, because everyone cheats to win. At what point do you draw the line and don't defend their reasoning for it and say it's just wrong, period?
No, I understand what you're saying, Terry. But the point is, I don't care about boxing. I ain't interested in about golf and all of this. Yeah, I'm interested
in football. So what kind of cheating in football would you just criticize carte blanche and make no excuse for it?
Oh, it's my corner, ref. It's my corner, ref. When it didn't touch the defender, is that cheating? But that's fine. That happens in every game 20 times.
Lee, I'm asking you. I don't want to argue. Give me a straight answer. What level of cheating would you say that's it? I can't defend that in any way, shape, or form.
What, in football?
Yes.
In football, if a player is using performance-enhancing drugs, which means that he can run longer, run harder, run faster, yeah, and his body's a lot stronger, then that should be outlawed. That's wrong. Like performance-enhancing drugs. Mm-hmm. Investing your own money into your football club, I don't see that as cheating. So I don't. So
the reason that some people will, and I'm glad you gave that example, is because if you can build a squad that has 2 or 3 more Agueros in it, because you've got money now to spend that you don't have legitimately based on the rules, and that squad's bigger, then you can run faster, play harder, rotate more, and cope with injuries to an unfair level compared to your opponents if you've cheated the system financially that's in place. So that's why it's considered cheating by people, because if you actually just look at the Aguero season, they bought Aguero that year. Let's just say when this comes out in the wash, they lied about £100 million of income that year. They may not have been able to afford him. So that's why some people.
I understand that, Terry.
So if I built a bigger squad than you, if Man United built a bigger squad than you this year, but they cheat in getting that squad, they break laws of the game to have a bigger squad, and we end up finishing in front of you, do you think that's acceptable because we're only doing it because we want to win?
The aim of elite sports to win, Terry. It always has been.
Cool. Then I've got my answer. I just wanted to know. if that's the case, Chelsea and United should get ready. We'll see with that one. Lee doesn't understand the other side of business. City aren't buying lighters. They are spending on long-term contracts, debt attached to the club.
It's not a debt, it's an asset.
Depends on accounting-wise, it's definitely a debt, but I hear you. It's a depreciating asset. Yeah. Message it sends is money alone cannot turn a club into a giant quickly. In a few years, Man United, Liverpool, Newcastle already big, so no effect on investors there. Faddy here says painful to watch Lee egg on clubs to be financially irresponsible. Owners can go bankrupt or lose interest, so we need to protect the clubs. The debate ended in a majority draw after 5 rounds. Thank you, Joshua Jack. Lee's delusional. In one breath, Lee would let the EPL turn into a billionaire's playground with spending limits, but in another breath, I think he means they would tyrannically control a middle table club's profits and forced investments. Insane is what Connor says here.
The aim of elite sport is to win. Every single football club that is in that Premier League should be striving to be champions. Every single one of them. Instead, what you've got is a bunch of teams that are just happy to be there. Brighton, Brentford, teams like that, they're just happy to be in the Premier League, which is why Nottingham Forest, for example, everyone was laughing in the summer. They'd done 20 players, bought 20 players, then they went and got another load in January. Fair play to them. They're having a go. Yeah, they're not going to win the league, but at least they're doing what's required. They're trying. Yeah, they're trying to level up and trying to get there. And if they stay in the league, they'll do it again next season. Then the next season. Yeah, why shouldn't you do that?
I hear you on that. This here says my club Villa nearly went out of business because of Tony. I don't know Shao massively overspent and then gambled our entire financial future on a playoff final and lost. We were days away from folding before a new ownership came in. That is from Porcelain. There are examples of it where teams have almost gone out of business. And what's crazy is that's even with FFP being in place. I honestly believe without it, as much as some people say it shouldn't exist, without it, I almost feel that, especially with what hit with COVID, some clubs would have been gone.
Can I just highlight a comment very quickly? A guy in the chat said Brighton would have sold if their owner's happy to be here. Why would he sell? Why would he sell? He's making millions and millions and millions of pounds on top of the billions he's already worth in profit every year to not win anything.
Yeah, I hear you on that. This here says FFP doesn't level the playing field. It just does the opposite. We have had old signatories like ex-Sunderland chairman who came out and accepted the pitch idea was different to the implementation, elite controlling FFP. And do you know what? I agree with that. I do think there needs to be reform in it. There needs to be room for growth. I think more investment is needed, but more investment with bonds and essentially like parachutes of money that the owners have to. That's also how you know you're serious. Say the new owners of Man United say we're going to invest £2 billion. Cool. But then you have to put £2 billion into a pot somewhere that the Premier League has access to. They can only ever give it to Man United, but this protects them. Let's just say, look, so much can happen in the world, by the way. You know, a lot of billionaires are only billionaires because of the companies they own. If you're state-run and there's a problem in that region, this is one of the scary things about if you're owned by a country. If something happens in that country and suddenly another country's coming over, and that's as polite as I can say it, that could all be gone. So put some money into and I'm talking not commit to it, but put some money in a pot and protect the football clubs. I do think there's room for reform on this. But by the way, whatever happens, there'll be new rules and laws around that. FFP makes the Premier League more competitive, and if you let big clubs use endless money, you're getting a Super League, is what's said there. Anyone that wants to contribute to the City GoFundMe. Dapo here says, by Lee's beliefs, players should be allowed to use anything to improve performance, even steroids, is what Dapo has said there. Lee's trying to present all clubs exclusively on financially motivated enterprises, but business or not, they exist within the confines of a footballing competition. Meritocracy matters. And I do think that's also the element here, that meritocracy matters, but in the Premier League, this is what's weird. You've got a business operating inside a competition, which is owned by a business. So it becomes a clusterfuck. But within that, you've got to follow the laws. And City sign up every year to the laws. And if they've cheated them, the punishments have to be big. This here says laws are in place for a reason. If they are cheated, punish them, just like criminal law. At the same time, owners should be able to put money in to win. And I agree with that, as long as it's protected and regulated. You can't sign up to 2 rules as another 19 clubs get caught cheating, moan about it, throw other teams under the bus, Chelsea, and throw whataboutism around, is what B has got to say. Big up, Terry. Big up, Lee. Great debate. Enjoy watching you both. Real ones. Big up. Thank you. It's just the EPL trying to desperately show they can financially manage themselves, just a few sneezes away from a regulatory governor appointed by the government. And this is true. Like, the Premier League is flexing here so that we don't have independent people watching. KJ, you removed something I was going to put on the screen, bruv. What did you just remove? No, not that one. It was a different one. I had something else saved that I wanted to put up on the screen. And I don't remember what it wasn't a super chat. I think it was the one that wasn't a super chat. And I don't remember what it was now. And it was just an interesting point someone made. That was it. No, I remember what it was. I don't need to put it up. I remember what it was. Someone said, Terry, you can't remove the league titles and undo people's legacies. Darren Campbell lost World Championship medals and European medals. I said yesterday it was Olympics. It wasn't, because Dwayne Chambers took drugs. I said one thing I was going to say on this is, if City are found guilty, I think that the maximum punishment should be issued. I think titles should be stripped, because if you've cheated to win them, you don't deserve them. I feel massively sorry for the Agueros and the companies, the David Silvers, all their players, because they didn't cheat. They didn't know that this was going on. So I will feel massively sorry for them. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. In my opinion, this isn't an individual player in a team who's taken a drug to help his individual performance. This is potentially a club creating a squad that it didn't have the means to build under the laws of the league. So I think it would be very harsh, but I do believe in it. I think expulsion from the league for a period of time, or relegation with financial cappings, should exist. Stripping of titles, if they're found guilty of lots of these things. If they feel guilty of 2 or 3, my opinion will be different. So it's really hard to judge what I think the punishment should be. But if they go out, they go out. Lee wants to get rid of FFP because he's just spent hundreds of millions on Mudryk and Enzo. Because Lee's an Arsenal fan, by the way.
No, he's trying to be sarcastic. Ha ha.
Oh, right.
Thanks for the super chat.
I hear you on that, bro. On Arsenal, by the way, because I know you had, obviously, I mean, it's weird how Arsenal's defeat has just gone undiscussed really in the last 2 days. What was your thought of Arsenal's performance at the weekend, mate?
I've got a bone to pick with you.
Go on, mate.
I see your fan cam review show.
Yes.
And you said in that fan cam review show, look how happy Lee looks that Arsenal have lost.
I was joking.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Terry, a lot of your viewers see it as truthful.
I did also say, I did actually agree with a lot of your points after that.
I know you did. But I had a couple of guys in my chat last night going, why was you so happy Arsenal lost to Everton? I said, oh, you must have watched the fan cam review show. Mate, disgusting, shocking, horrible performance. We have bigger fish to fry, is what was said after. I'm glad we've moved on from this FFP debate, by the way.
Only an hour and a half.
Mad. But yeah, I was very upset with the FA Cup loss to Man City. And we had 8 days to go and fry these bigger fish that everyone kept banging on about. We threw away the League Cup against Brighton, put that in the bin real quick. Didn't care about that. It don't matter. It's a shit cup. Okay. Then we threw away the FA Cup. It don't matter. We've got bigger fish to fry. 8 days later, we're going to play one of the bigger fish that we have to fry. And we're going to put that level of performance out. Shocking, embarrassing, not good enough. We knew what Sean Dyche was going to do. We knew he was manager. We haven't won at Everton since 2017. Yeah, this manager has got a bad record against Dyche. He's got a bad record against anyone who parks the bus. Literally, you go through since he's been here as manager. Every team that's parked the bus against us has pretty much got something out of the game. And yeah, not good enough. And everyone was saying, oh, you're having a meltdown. You're this, you're that. Yes. I was having a meltdown. Do you know why? Yeah, because that ain't good enough. We knew what they were going to do, and they did it to the T. Why can't we find a way around that? And all the people that want to moan, oh, it's only one loss. We're still top. Yeah, it worked out all right for them people because Man City obviously lost the next day, right? Which is kind of funny because all the people that told me to F off down the lane were all supporting the team down the lane. Kind of mad. Like all jumping around, knee sliding when Harry Kane scored. Crazy, isn't it? But the levels shouldn't drop. The standards should never drop. I say this every single day. I sent you a text earlier that Madrid Zone, I think, put it out about Carlo Ancelotti. I want to read this out real quick for the viewers, yeah? Where are we? There we go. So this got posted out. Just in, Real Madrid are losing faith with Carlo Ancelotti. His job will be in serious danger if he loses the Club World Cup. This is the guy that won the Champions League and the league last season. I've seen loads of their fans this season sitting there saying, thanks, mate, but he's got to go at the end of this season. Real Madrid, Florentino Perez is losing faith with the manager that has just won the Champions League and the league. That is the level of eliteness that we smashed that stadium down where these legends played. And Peter Hillwood in 2004 said we're moving to compete with the likes of Real Madrid, etc., etc. Fast forward 19 years later, Real Madrid are still elite. And what have we been doing? So when people want to sit there and say to me, oh, it's only one loss, don't matter. Don't matter. Don't matter about Man City getting out of the cup. Nah, don't matter. We've got bigger fish to fry. Well, it does matter. Yeah, because if you have the mindset of every loss matters, you will end up being an elite football club. But when this football fan base of Arsenal's has got millions and millions of people that go, don't matter about the cups. Nah, don't matter. Don't matter. Bigger fish to fry. The start of the season, Terry, 4 of Arsenal's players, our captain, our vice-captain, so Odegaard and Xhaka, Aaron Ramsdale and Smith Rowe, all sat on pre-season at separate interviews and said top 4 in Europa League we're going for this season. Their words. That then went through the fan base. So the narrative at the start of the season was, Arteta's got to win the Europa League and get top 4 or he's got to go. That was pretty much the narrative online from the majority of Arsenal fans, yeah?
Yeah.
We've now thrown away 2 cups just like that. So there's 50% of the competitions that we're in, gone. If we don't win the league and we don't win the Europa League, based on what they were all saying at the start of the season, that's deemed as failure then. So they'd want the manager gone. But they won't. They'll make out, oh, he's got us back in the Champions League. Goosebumps at the carpet with the music. Oh, yes, great, fantastic. Man United and Newcastle in a League Cup final. If both of them get top 4, and obviously one of them's going to win the cup, but Arsenal don't win anything and get top 4, out of them 3 clubs, which team's fans are going to celebrate the most?
So ask me that question there, right there at the end. Ask me that question again.
If Manchester United, Arsenal, and Newcastle all get top 4, but obviously Newcastle or Manchester United, one of them is going to win the League Cup, but Arsenal don't win anything but get top 4 as well, which out of them 3 clubs, Newcastle, Man United, and Arsenal, that have all got top 4, but one of them 2, Man United and Newcastle, have won a cup and we win nothing, which fan base is going to jump for joy the most?
It shouldn't be Arsenal, but it will be. And when I say it will be Arsenal, I'm not the majority of the Arsenal fans that watch the Terrace, because the majority now, like when I read a lot of the comments they put on the videos, a lot think a bit like you, Lee. They're just not as harsh, if that makes sense. But I think like Arsenal fans, if you don't win the league from this point, there should be an element of disappointment. I think that there should be a view of not throwing baby out with the bathwater, because your team is good enough to go again next year and challenge. But I think that if you end up finishing 2nd with no trophies and Man United come 3rd, win a League Cup and win the Europa League, you know, Man United have had a better season because it's about winning trophies, as an example. However, there is the caveat here, which is, but you know you're a title contending worthy team now, and there should be excitement about going into the next season, improving again in the summer, going again and maybe winning the league. So for me, I wouldn't say you would have to, you should be not happy with not winning it. That you should be unhappy you haven't won the league and unhappy that you haven't won a trophy, but that doesn't necessarily equate to being angry at the club, slamming the club, wanting the manager sacked, and acting like you're back in 8th position. So I think both those things can be true at the same time, you know?
On the flip side of that, somebody in the chat said Real Madrid fans are spoilt brats. No, Real Madrid fans got an elite mindset and they understand the aim of elite sport, mate. Yeah, and Barcelona are currently 8 points clear or 5 points clear of Real Madrid. Real Madrid have lost 1 game in the league more than Arsenal in the same amount of league games. They've played 20, they've lost 3. They're 2nd in the table. And their manager is about to be sacked if he loses the next game. And he's just won the Champions League and he's just won the league. And if we don't win anything, we got to, let's just go again. Another season, let's go again. This sentiment, and like putting a manager or individual players' careers over the good and great of the football club has destroyed my club beyond repair, Terry. Because we could literally fall away, capitulate, lose the next 10 games, finish fifth, and everyone is saying, don't matter, weren't expected to win the league anyway. Yeah, and we'll go again. Give Arteta, we can't compete. Let's say Chelsea got in the top 4. Man City win it, let's say. Chelsea, Newcastle, and Man United, and we end up finishing 5th, right? It'd be, but Chelsea spent 600 million quid. How are we supposed to compete with that? They'll totally forget about Newcastle. Yeah, and it's round and around and around we go. Elite mentality is lost on so many people in football. It is crazy. Yeah, the whole reason a lot of these people support these football clubs, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, etc., is because they were successful. And and when you're a kid, you know this, Terry. When you're a kid, you want to support the team that is winning. You get bragging rights in the playground. You can pretend to be a favourite player from that club, etc., etc. Fast forward all these years later into adult life, and it don't matter anymore. It don't matter. Don't matter if we don't win. Well, sorry. I see my stadium, that club, my football club that I've supported for 40 years nearly, smashed the stadium down that these legends behind me played in to go and compete with Real Madrid. Real Madrid were elite 19 years ago. They're still elite now. And they're on the cusp of sacking a manager that is elite and has been for 40 years. Yeah, because he's currently second in the league with 18 games to play. And that is deemed not good enough. That is the standards that my football club should have within its fan base.
Can I ask you a question though? Like, and I'm not disagreeing with your point. I want to understand it more. Do you not sometimes think though that a manager can have a bad season or a bad 3 months, and maybe if they would have stuck with the guy through that bad month, that bad 6 months, that bad season, they could have come out on the other side and won more? I always remember with Chelsea as an example, when they got rid of Ancelotti, I just remember thinking the year they sacked him, he didn't even have a bad year by Premier League standards. That doesn't mean that Fergie had a number of years where he didn't win the Premier League. He won 13. He was in it for 20 years. So in those 7 years where he didn't win it, like Real Madrid would have probably sacked him. But then a great example would be between 2003 and 2006, Man United didn't win the league. But then we did a three-peat, won a Champions League, and then 2 more league titles. Do you not sometimes feel like maybe they're a little bit too trigger happy, and maybe they're able to be trigger happy because there's basically 2 teams in Spain that have the monopoly over the whole league, so it's easy. But in England, like Arsenal don't have that monopoly. So if you're chopping and changing every 6 months, every 12 months, if you go through, I think since 2004, Real Madrid have been through about 14 managers. If you change with that regularity, do you ever think you'd be able to build the stability to continually compete and win, not having the financial monopoly in England?
Yeah, I think you can. Like, if you look at the 3 most successful teams in England and in Europe in the same time period from 2004, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Real Madrid, they've had 50-odd managers between them. That's literally a manager every season on average. I worked it out the other day. I think it was in the last 16 years. I may be wrong, 16 years. They averaged over a manager a season each. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, it was literally, get him in, you ain't won the league, see you later. Get him in, you ain't won the league, see you later. And even if you do win the league in the Champions League, if you're 20 games deep and you're 5 points behind Barca, see ya. Chelsea were the same. They sacked Ancelotti at half-time in the tunnel. I remember, I think he was playing Everton. I think they sacked him at half-time in the tunnel. Yeah, but this is why I think that, somebody in this chat said that you're a broken record, we're top of the league and you're acting like we're 8th. That's because my standards, whether we win, lose or draw, are the standards. Like, it's just because we're top. These people were telling me last season.
So I want to interject and defend you a little bit here. I will say this, that I do get in, again, everybody, I think maybe AFTV have done this inadvertently. And I mean this with respect to AFTV. This is purely respectful. Because they had some people on there for years that ranted, I think there's like this perception of, I don't want to be seen as a fan that's like shitting on my club. And people sometimes think that of AFTV, which they're not, because there's loads of fans on there now that big up the club. There was back then as well, by the way, but they obviously never went as viral. So I understand why the misconception is there. But sometimes I see Arsenal lose, and I think, I don't expect you to want to get the banners out. I don't expect swearing and ranting. But I expect a little bit of, I'm annoyed that we lost today. I do think it becomes infuriating for certain Arsenal fans when they might see a tweet or they might see a video from another Gooner where they're sitting there smiling like they didn't just lose. And I almost feel like there's got to be a balance, if that makes sense, and to it. And sometimes you can just criticize a game in isolation. Today, this player wasn't good enough. Today, the manager got this wrong. Today, I thought this was a mistake. There wasn't the intensity. That doesn't mean that it undoes all the praise you've given this year. And I think sometimes fans online have forgotten how to be balanced. What they've become is either there's a big group and they're the same people on different ends of the spectrum where they're either always negative or always looking to be negative, or they're always looking to be overly positive. And I do think the majority, though, sit in the middle where they can handle a bit of criticism and they can handle a little bit, and they can handle when they enjoy the praise. But it's kind of getting that balance sort of right. Like,
do you know why there's people that just go around and around and around in circles? Like that person said, "Oh, just be happy. Yeah, you're like a broken record, mate. Oh, it don't matter. We've got bigger fish to fry. If we don't then win the league, oh, it don't matter. Nobody expected us to win the league. You know, it goes round and round. Do you know why people do that? Because it takes away all accountability and responsibility. I've just gone through, somebody in the chat said, bollocks, Zidane was there for 5 years. How have they had that many managers? I've just gone through Real Madrid's managers since 2004. Yeah, they've had 17 in 19 years.
I thought it was 14. That's 17. A couple of them might have been interims, but yeah, like they've had a lot of managers.
2004, they've had 17 managers. In fact, they had 3 in one season in 2004.
What I would say,
what I would, in one season.
Sorry. What I would say is different now, though, in England, and you have to take this into consideration, is since Chelsea lost their financial monopoly on the league, the chopping and changing of managers has yielded far less trophies. And I do think there's an element of stability that's needed, you know, and just I kind of look at it now. 2012, the new TV deal money. I'm not even talking FFP and the new TV deal money came in, and you know, you look at like Antonio Conte, they should have stuck by him. They'd have won more leagues. They didn't have, but no one's won one since him, and it's a long time now. No one's won a league.
Chelsea have not won a league for what, 6 years?
6 years, and they've.
But if you in that 6 years, how many trophies have they won? And look at the level of trophies they've won. Champions League.
They've won trophies, and they absolutely have. And the Champions League is in there, and that will stick them through. But when you speak to a lot of Chelsea fans and get them to be honest, I think they realise that the chopping and changing of managers works well when you have a monopoly in a league. I don't think it works as well when you're not the biggest and the best. I think there has to be a bit more stability, because otherwise you're throwing baby out with the bathwater. But I just think it's getting the balance of those two things right. We've got some super chats here I want to do. First one says, love the debate, guys. Always cheers me up when I'm in hospital. If City are guilty, then all trophies should be stripped. Arsenal's performance was disgusting, by the way. Thanks for the super chat, Stephen. Hope you're feeling better, my friend. Terry, I bet you learn so much from the chat on topics away from football. Sometimes I do. Certain words get put in here, and I don't know what that means, and then people tell me it makes a lot of sense. It's more Lee's tone that bothers people than his actual comments. We know that's true, Plasma. That's 100% true. Lee. It's always Lee's tone as opposed to what it is he's saying. Here's from Sharik, a member, says, I feel like since Ten Hag, as a fan, I have perspective on the way we approach that we have things since we lost Fergie, having to win every game no matter the circumstances. Yeah, mentality is absolutely key, but it's almost like if I don't know, like if Arsenal win the Premier League with Arteta this year, but then next year you come third in the league, I don't think that's caused to the point you were saying that. I don't think that's caused to sack him. I think if he's lost the dressing, because I think you have to look at the wider issue. You know, is the dressing room responding to him still? Why have they fallen back? Have you fallen back? Let's say you win the league with 85 points this year, but next year you're better. But just two other teams
third on 85 again, but finish third.
And I know that you can't always get points, but like you could be even better next year. But let's just say Man United and City play at a level that you just can't quite reach. There's not always a necessity to sack a manager, and I think sometimes where you finish and it's like sometimes not winning a trophy isn't the end of the world if your trajectory is good. Because I think for me, I feel like managers have to be sacked when the trajectory is going backwards, because then
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. So, Terry, we moved, and I keep saying it, and people keep crying about it. Most of these people weren't even born. Yeah, when we were playing in Highbury, we smashed Highbury down to compete with Europe's elite. Yeah, well, Europe's elite are Barca and Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. Right, let's be real here. And PSG, you can put in that bracket to a certain degree, but they don't win in Europe so much. So maybe take them out. but they are a lot better than us. But we smashed down a stadium to compete with Barca, Bayern, and Real Madrid. We've heard Ivan Gazidis say that in 2012. We heard Sir Peter Hillwood say it in 2004. We're moving to compete with them, right? I remember Vicente Del Bosque at Real Madrid won the Champions League 3 days after he'd won the league for Real Madrid. So he's done the double. After the day after the parade for both trophies, they sacked him. That is called being elite. You've come to the end of your time here. Thanks for the trophies. Adios, amigo.
Yeah.
And this is where football fans can't grasp the concept. It's, oh no, we have to build. We have to build. We have to get there. We're getting back. No, the standards of this football club, Arsenal, have gone so far down in 19 years that it's going to be seen as a massive achievement if we don't win anything this season, but just get top 4. If we win the league, fair play. Yeah, I actually do think we'll win it. I've said this before. I still think we'll win the league. But if we don't win it, I want to be in a race until the death. Yeah, because if we fall away and finish 10, 12 points behind, get rid of him.
And maybe that's right. But I think you also, as you say, Real Madrid, when they sack managers, they're not just doing it on a whim. They will be doing it based on what's being said, what the players are saying, the feel-good factor around the club. There's tangibles and intangibles that we're not aware of as football fans. If they're happy, so if they were happy with the manager, I guarantee you the managers they've sacked, if the board were looking at going, listen, we didn't have a great year this year, but the players are working hard for him. We're a handful of points away next year. We really believe in him. They wouldn't sack the manager. So I think that's sometimes what you have to take into consideration as well. There's a super chat here that says, hey, Terry and Lee, hope you're well. Can I get both your opinions on whether you think both City and Liverpool have been underperforming due to fatigue? City have more depth that has helped. Do you think Liverpool and City have fallen off this year because of fatigue?
No, not at all. I just think that they've totally changed the way they play. They've both got a striker, which is something that neither of them have really had over the last few years. I know Aguero was there, but Aguero was a completely different type of striker than Haaland. Yeah, Aguero is a top footballer. Yeah, whereas Haaland, he's not a very good footballer, but you put the ball in the box, he'll score 9 times out of 10. He offers nothing in the build-up. He offers nothing other than darting runs, and his movement is elite. Yeah, and he's electric pace. And they are so predictable to watch this season. It is crazy. When I watched them against Tottenham the other day, they took off and I thought Grealish did well. A lot of people are saying he didn't, whatever. I actually thought he played well, Grealish. And I think it was you. Maybe it was you yesterday on one of your shows yesterday saying that Grealish is a flop, 100 million or something. Maybe it was you.
We do not use that name on this terrace. He is called Luke Chadwick.
That's it. It was you. It was you. It was you. You need to understand why Grealish is in the team. The same reason. Yeah, he's in the... Okay, I'll give an example, Terry, right? Would you say that Anthony at Manchester United, who cost the same amount of money, would you say that he is a flop so far, based off of what you've seen so far, with the big expectation, the price tag, etc.?
I wouldn't use the word flop with Anthony, and I'll tell you as to why. One, he's been in the Premier League and he's been here he started 11 games. Okay, 11 or 12 games in the Premier League so far. What I will say is that he's not delivering the outputs I would expect. What he is doing, he is delivering, he's keeping the shape, he's pressing well, he helps out defensively. Those things are very important to us. But there is still a validity period with this. Because he's 22 and just come to the Premier League, he gets more leeway with me than a player who's 28, 29 and only ever played in England and has gone into a system that was already built and is playing for the best manager in the world. Jack Grealish, I'm being a little bit of it. I'm exaggerating slightly when I do the whole Luke Chadwick thing and everything else. I believe he does a lot of good work in the team. I understand he can progress the ball. I understand he creates space for others. I understand he helps out defensively. But at the end of the day, whenever I hear a fan base do this whole, yeah, but he does all this other stuff. Liverpool fans did it for 2 seasons with Firmino. Remember that? He's the best defensive striker in the world. The comments they came out with. As soon as Liverpool regressed slightly and they needed more goals, they turned on him. And if City don't win anything this year, City fans will start to turn on Jack Grealish because he doesn't deliver enough of what he was brought in to do. And
what do you think he was brought in to do, though?
He is brought into all the things you're doing now as part of it. But that's the same as every player is brought in to maintain the shape. Every player in a Pep system plays a role in the defensive setup in terms of tracking back and covering space or pressing when they're trying to win the ball and attack through a transition. Every member of the team is required to do that in a Pep Guardiola system. Same as Klopp. Their systems, the element that never gets discussed, what always gets discussed is the tiki-taka football, the great passing, the beautiful stuff. the fundamental base of their systems is a solid shape in and out of possession and hard work and tracking and running. So he does that perfectly. There's no doubt about it. But there isn't an attacker in the world who is signed to come into a club to not deliver goals and assists. Now, I've heard Thierry Henry say that when he went to Barcelona, he was pushed more out wide on the left-hand side. It was to create space for others and do his job there. And there is elements of that is true. But in my opinion, I think we're all taking that far too literally. I don't expect Jack Grealish to score and assist as many goals as Mo Salah has done in the past. I don't expect him to have scored or assisted as many goals as even Marcus Rashford is doing at the moment, because he isn't the key goal scorer in his team. But I expect far more creativity from him, far more clutch individual moments that I'm getting. The amount of times I see him sizing up a defender, all he's got to do is beat him and play the right ball across the 6-yard box, and it isn't happening. So for me, he's not delivering in the moments when he's meant to be. The other stuff he's doing is great, and there's no issue with that. But for £100 million in a team that's basically had 1.5 players performing all year, he hasn't done enough. And I think that if I would want more from him for that. He's a talented player. I wanted Jack Grealish at Man United. I think he's a phenomenal footballer with ability. But for me, at £100 million, he's not delivering enough for Man City.
So you're basing it on the price tag. So if he costs 30 million, so I'll give an example, right? For me, I think that he was brought into the team to hold the ball and keep the ball ticking. And it's very hard to get him off the ball. He draws fouls all the time. I think he was fouled 17 times against Tottenham. But that's his job. That's what he's been brought into the team for. He won't go and score loads of goals. He's got a goal scorer for that. Got Mahrez for that on the other side. Got Foden that can go in there that can do that. He's brought into the team to hold the ball up, drive the team forward and keep it ticking and make space for Haaland or for Bernardo or De Bruyne, whoever, on the edge of the box. It's very similar to Zinchenko. Zinchenko weren't brought into Arsenal to be a left-back to defend. He was brought into Arsenal to be a left-back that inverts into midfield, to basically be a CM, to overload midfield, to make us press higher up the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was brought in specifically to do that job, not to defend, because I don't think Zinchenko can defend very well. Yeah, and so you don't know what you're talking about. Well, Tierney's a better defender, but Tierney can't do what Zinchenko does in midfield.
I get that.
Whereas Foden plays the same position as Grealish, but they're the same as Tierney and Zinchenko. One can score goals and create goals. The other one is there to do a different job.
The only reason I disagree slightly, I agree with you in he ain't there to score loads and loads. I get that. But at the same time, I would love to sit and watch a game with you and point it out in. This is the one thing about being a YouTuber, which we suffer with, which Sky Sports don't. If I was on Sky Sports with you now, I'd have all the clips ready to show you what I mean. But just go, the amount of times he has the ball in positions where he can square it, if he finds the right cross or his shot's accurate, he'd score goals. That's why I disagree that he's not in there to do it, because he's in the position to be able to deliver and he isn't doing it. My question to you is, though, and this is a genuine question, this isn't to try and catch you out. When it's come to your attackers, not your striker, but your Sakas, your Martinellis, and your Odegaards, who between them will cover the similar positions on the field to Grealish, barring Jack at the opposite side, you've been quite damning that they don't score and assist enough. So why would Jack Grealish, are you not putting the same pressure on him to score and assist as much?
Because he's a completely different team. Completely different team, completely different profile of player. Yeah, Jack Wilshere Martinelli is not Jack Wilshere, is he? Martinelli is not just going to hold the ball up, jog down the wing, draw fouls and stuff like that. Martinelli's more direct, more explosive off the mark. His dribbling's miles better. He wins fouls, but not as many as Grealish. Yeah, and his passing is nowhere near as good as Grealish. So why would I say Grealish has to go and score the level of goals that my wingers should be scoring, in my opinion? Why would I say that to Grealish? He's a completely different profile of player. Martinelli, if you put Grealish into Arsenal, yeah, I'd know why he's coming into Arsenal. I'd know that he ain't coming in to score and create and dribble and speed up the pitch and all of that like Martinelli's doing. Yeah, or Saka's doing. You have different, and Pep's got different profile of players for different games. Grealish doesn't play every game.
So who is your guy? Who is the guy in the Arsenal team that does the Jack Grealish job, that holds the ball up and creates a space? Who's the guy that does that?
Probably, well, there's two. Probably Odegaard and Zinchenko. Yeah, and Saka on the wing positions does that better than Martinelli. But at the same time, yeah, Grealish is a totally different footballer, totally different type of footballer.
I understand that, but roles in teams, because everyone needs a player. Like we've had it.
Odegaard's probably the most, because Zinchenko's passing sick. Yeah, his passing's so good. Yeah, Odegaard's passing is very good as well. But Odegaard's the one that will keep it ticking this season. He's the one that drift out to the right. Yeah, he'll keep it ticking. He'll keep hold of the ball. He'll draw free kicks. That's the Grealish type player, but he's playing more central than Grealish. But every team has that player. Man United have that player. Yeah, you have players like that.
The thing is, though, I mean, just looking.
The difference is theirs is playing on the wing and ours are in midfield.
Statistically, in the City team this year, only Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland take more shots per 90 minutes on goal than Jack Grealish, and only KDB attempts more key passes and completes more key passes than Jack Grealish. So I do think he's there to create and score as well, and that's my view.
Yeah. What's a key pass? Is that a shot that leads a pass that leads to a shot on goal?
Yeah, and I'm looking at attempted, so where someone's trying to play someone through on goal. So it's quite a good statistic. So that will look when you look at so what comes with all these stats. It shows you all the video footage with it. Obviously, I just can't show it on screen. So it'll show you every single time he tries to play. So for instance, say like you've got someone making an overlap into the box, and Jack Grealish tries to play them in, so they can then cross the ball for Haaland to score. That's an attempted key pass because it's a pass that breaks a line or gets you in on goal.
Is this XP or something?
I don't quite know. I mean, this website's pretty good. It actually shows you what it means, so it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from on that. I do. I just want to understand your take on it. This here says football is pay to win. You don't pay equals no trophies. Is what James Thompson said. This is a good question. It says if Arteta wins the Premier League, is it one of the greatest achievements in Premier League history?
Excuse me?
Well, you know, what do you mean, excuse me?
Would it be one of the greatest achievements in Prem history? Arsenal did what they smashed the stadium down for. Well done. I've only been waiting 19 years since the last title. What an achievement. Yay.
That's not Arteta hasn't been the manager the whole time. Would it be a great achievement for Arteta?
In what way? That
rebuilt the squad. Rebuilt the squad.
You mean the manager's done his job? The manager's done his job. The aim of elite sports, Harry. He would have done his job. Congratulations. I'll say well done, Arteta. Now let's win it again next season.
I mean, I think it's when you say greatest achievements, I would like a bit more specific because it isn't as good as an Invincible. It's not as good as winning a treble. And I know people say, but that's not the Premier League. It is, because to win those other trophies whilst competing for a Premier League means you're spreading yourself thin, especially 25 years ago nearly when squads were smaller. Yeah. I think Leicester as a single season achievement could be looked at as greater because of the size of the club as an example. I think teams that do three-peats and win it 2 times and 3 times on the bounce because of the mental strength it takes to do that, you could argue a greater achievement. But I do think there is a sense of romance and a sense of beauty in this, because he came in, took over Arsenal when they were on their ass. Club was falling apart, bad decision making. The club was in bits. Hold
on. The club was in bits. They finished 5th, which by the way, is still not amassed more points than Unai Emery yet.
But I know your club was in bits in that period because I used to watch your streams back then, and you screamed and cried about how bad your club was at the time, Lee. So
I've been screaming and shouting about how bad the club is for 19 years, Terry. And not only that,
your club
manager has still not amassed a better league finish than Unai Emery, and this is his 3rd full season.
But you know he's going to this year.
Well done. It took you 3 years to do something that the club was in a mess for that Unai Emery did in 1 season.
But you're missing the point of the beauty. Was Unai Emery's first season at Arsenal? Was it his 3rd season ever as a manager? Yes.
Hang on. Hold on. Yes. No. It wasn't. Unai Emery had been a manager before. Okay. So on that basis, he shouldn't have got the job in the first place.
He did.
No, I know he did. And we're going back to
that is the beauty. And that is where I do think there is a beauty in this of a fledgling manager in his first job, taking over a catastrophic mess of a football club, rebuilding one of this country's greats into a team that can win the Premier League again. It's not a complete fairy tale. They didn't do it on a shoestring budget. They've spent between 300 to 400 million pounds on his squad. They've got a brilliant stadium and everything else. So it's not a complete fairy tale Cinderella story, but I do think it will go down as one of the best. I reckon it'll probably fit somewhere in the top 10 achievements in sort of single season achievements.
He would have done well. Yeah. Listen, we're doing
very well.
Yeah, we're doing very well this season. I'm enjoying it, despite what people think. Yeah, I am enjoying it. And I'm actually old enough to have seen us win a league title 5 times. Yeah, I like the taste of that, so I want some more.
I bet you do. Listen, I want to say a big thank you to all the viewers today. It's only been a 2-hour stream. I didn't realize it had been that long until I looked. I want to say a big thank you to all of you. Please make sure you hit like buttons and you subscribe to the Football Terrace. Please make sure you're back with us tomorrow. Of course, reaction to Man United Leeds in the evening. I'm not too sure what we're doing in the day, but we'll do some stuff. The whole week's been thrown off course because of the news with Man City, and maybe there'll be more revelations in the morning for us to sink our teeth into. I'm not even going to lie to you, brother. I want this to go so badly for the club because they've cheated. I don't like cheats. I'm not a fan of cheats. So
well, the next time one of your players dives, then make sure you have the same energy.
Bruv, I got threatened to get beaten up at Old Trafford because a video of mine went viral back then. Isn't like viral now because I said that Man United should issue Rooney with a 3-game ban because he dived in a match.
Was that against Arsenal?
I don't remember.
Cost us the 50th game.
No, you didn't even use back then. But it was. I think it was that, and then I also did it when Young dived, and I did a fan cam outside for the Full-Time Devils. And someone said, "Why would you want your own players banned?" I said, "I don't like diving and cheating in football, and I think we should be the." I said, I sort of looked at it this way: we should be the first club to take a moral stance against it, police our own, and we could eradicate, and you could help eradicate it from the match. And the United fans are, well, we shouldn't be the ones to take the first step. I also got into a physical fight in a pub once. I was talking to my friends, my mate's a gooner. And I said to him, Arsenal annoyed me this week. He's like, why? I said, you guys have now set the precedent that diving will never get you in trouble in football. Why? Eduardo. Because they had the chance, because he got banned for diving in the Champions League. We all know he dived.
He didn't dive.
Well, he dived. And for me, Arsenal should have allowed the ban, set the precedent, shown honour, and then banning for diving would have come in. And it annoyed me. But then some geezer went, don't talk about my club like that. And I was young. So I didn't used to get into fights where that you see on video, people square up and talk. I never did that. As soon as I thought it might go off, I just started throwing hands straight away. I ain't letting you hit me first.
Yeah, you're from East London, Terry. That's how it is.
Whenever you watch those videos, when men get sparked out unconscious by their girlfriends, it's like, why have you even allowed the other person to throw a punch first? Like self-defense, one punch, clear them out, step back, and then that's it, done. Anyway, yeah, listen, it was only a little dig. It was funny, actually. I saw him in the same pub 2 months later, and I took a risk. I bought him a drink, and I just walked up to his table and put it on his table and sort of nodded at him. And about an hour later, he come up to our table and he went, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Sorry about that. He's in a bad mood." And I was like, "Yeah, so was I." And then we sat down and drink. Never seen him again after that, funnily enough. But had a little drink with him and moved on. I remember when I put it down, and then I was walking away. But again, when you walk away from some environment, I didn't turn around and walk off. First 3 or 4 steps, I was still looking at him and then slowly turned around. There was some distance. You got to be careful. You got to be careful, You got to be careful. Listen, everyone who's tuned in today, a massive thank you. Please smash the like button before you leave and subscribe. Huge numbers on the show today as well. I think there were about 6,000 people watching at one point, which was great. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon.